All right, I'll start again. Sorry for the repetition. Hello, everybody. I'm Barney Arnold, the Chair of the Select Board, and welcome to the Select Board meeting on Tuesday, January 17th. I'm going to review the agenda and then we will come back to the community input time, and that's how we'll start. So first off is community input. Just as a reminder, during that time, you are welcome, anyone either here or on the Zoom call are welcome to make a comment at community input time, but we do not deliberate or respond to those comments. And then followed by the appointments and resignations. Then we're continuing. We're going to try to close the dog order for the dog on 480 South Street, what our amended order is going to look like. We have a presentation from the Council on Aging and Human Services, and that'll be followed by a presentation on the Housing Production Plan, which is a joint meeting with the Planning Board. And then we have our new state representative, Simon Cataldo, coming to our next Select Board meeting. So we're going to have a brief discussion about the issues, topics we want to send him ahead of time. So he has a sense of what some of the issues are we want to discuss with him. And finally, the town administrator's report, liaison reports, cemetery deed transfer requests and minutes, and a quick review of the warrant articles, warrants that have been signed in terms of town spending. I'm sorry. Okay.
Closer to the mic.
Yeah, this is only for the purposes of the recording. So my apologies. Usually I'm way too loud. So it's not a problem for me to be louder. Okay, so let's then open up the meeting by if you would indicate by raising your hand if you have a comment you'd like to make during the community input time, and if you would come. Let's see, we do not have it set up, huh? So
We don't have it.
okay, so maybe we could take Ryan, do you mind? We need to,
Okay, so we can just move this one here and this one can go.
and Kate's go over to that table there. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so just so that it can be heard by the people that are on the Zoom call and also be part of the recording. If you want to make a comment, come up to the sit at the chair and speak into that microphone. You have to speak just as loud to the audience, but that records it. And then please tell us who you are and your street, please.
My name is Paul Bertin. I am relatively new to Carlisle.
Can you sit down so you can, yeah, then they'll be able to hear you on the recording. Thank you.
Relatively new to Carlisle. I bought my home a year ago. So I'm part of the 7 houses that they are all referring to. It's a deck house, and there was extensive discussion this morning about with the assessors about the process, and we understand all that. But at the end of the day, the feeling from the deck owner, which is a small segment of the population, about 8%, feeling is that they have been targeted and they have not been fairly treated. Because when my tax go up by 23%, while the revenue only go up by 2.5%, means that there is a whole segment of the population that sees their tax going up just a little bit, or maybe even some going down. So the concern is that question is, does the town really cares about this segment of the population? And if the town does not care about them, then why should they care about the town and the people who live in the town? And my big concern is that the spirit of this town may change over time because they think they have been unfairly treated.
Okay, thank you. Who would like to comment next? Please come on up and have this, take a seat as well. And just because I don't know if there are people online, but just for those that might be wanting to come up and make a statement, if you could think about maybe 2 minutes as your sort of time frame, that'd be great, just as we have such a full agenda. Yes, thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Linda Taylor. I live on Concord Road in Carlisle. I've been a resident since 1993. I really don't want to be up here today because I'm a stock person and I have a chart here of what it looks like when you follow the herd. It's usually a bad sign. And I'm here today because I feel like the Board of Health is not serving the public safety of our town. They seem to be parroting only what the big government says, and they're not doing any independent research. I'd like to point out this book to the public that there's been an epidemic of sudden deaths in 2021 and 2022, and it's very serious. COVID came along and it really targeted older people, and we are now pushing vaccines on younger people. A couple of people on the Board of Health have said, I'm nervous. A couple of people on the Board of Health said, we just want to get as many shots in many arms as there's possible. That's not the point. The point is public health, public safety. A 2-year-old little girl died in New Hampshire after getting the COVID shot and the flu shot in one day, and she was dead the next day. This is very serious. I hope it doesn't come to our town, but I guess because you're having a dangerous hearing for a dog today, I thought we need to have a dangerous hearing for this COVID vaccine, and that we should not be doing these public, spending our taxpayer money, putting shots in the arms of kids when they have zero risk of death. You know, up until I'm 64 years old, up until you're like 70, you have like 99.9% chance of surviving COVID. We have not been told the truth by our government. We haven't been told the truth by our public health. So I'm just asking that we look at this and care for the whole community, not just pushing the agenda of the CDC. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody online that, maybe one of you that's on the Zoom call?
Still trying to get on.
Oh, okay. Could you, if anyone's on the Zoom call that would like to make a comment online? Mark has his hand up. All right. Yes, please, Mark. And it'd be great if you could, go with a 2-minute limit if possible.
I think I can beat that. Let's see, timing. I do want to just follow up for informational purposes on the Board of Assessors meeting this morning. Again, we do have a situation where a small segment of homeowners who own deck houses have been affected by extreme market exuberance in the COVID period. So yeah, there's no doubt that prices have gone up. However, what I do want to just bring to the Select Board's attention for future reference and perhaps discussion, even though assessment is outside of your purview, the fact of the matter is that the data that is in these assessors' home type database misses a significant number of deck houses, which is a huge fairness issue. And it is clear, and it was admitted by the Board of Assessors, that data is not in good shape and has not been in good shape for many, many years. So it's just about accountability, it's about fairness, and it really should be something that is on the minds of the Select Board.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Anyone else in the audience that would like to offer a comment during this time? Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Gordon Chen. I live on Stony Gate. I've been there for 47 years. And I'm just follow up on the conversation on the deck house valuation situation. It's, what I pointed out in the assessors meeting this morning, we understand they follow their rule, their internal rule and the state government's rule diligently. The only issue that we talk about, in my experience as a professional, is the sample size that they use in reevaluate the deck house. Seven data points, and there are some peculiarities of some of the data, but I'll talk later. The 7 data point will affect the valuation basically turned the valuation of all Carlisle properties upside down. That suggests something's wrong somewhere. It's either the process or the data. The data, the 7 data, there's 2 problems of the 7 data. The number is too small to be representative. And also the lack of a deeper evaluation of the sum of the data. You know, there were 2 data, two houses was used in the revaluation. They're on Stony Gate. But as neighbors, we know the transaction histories of those two properties. Those 2 properties was transacted 6 times in the last 2 years. And there's 1 single party was involved in 3 transactions. You know, I'm not implying those are illegal or anything hanky-panky, but they are not normal. And another property involved has a 30-car garage accessory buildings equipped with hydraulic lift. It was, you know, was owned and built by a antique car a collector. Now we all visit that building. It's like a car museum. But the transaction price probably reflect that amenities. But when you divide the transaction price to the original square footage of living area, you come up with a huge number. You know, as the assessor has noted and quoted by Carlisle mosquitoes, it looks strange because the Carlisle, you know, Stony Gate property per square foot cost is higher than
Tall Pines.
Tall Pine neighborhood. You know, that's turning the value system in Carlisle upside down. So you know, we all understand the assessor board is a small organization. You know, especially the assessor himself, Brian, he's overwhelmed. And there are many issues with the Carlisle property database that need to be straightened out, you know. And to come up with the, you know, they would try to comfort us. You know, this is a temporary issue. In a couple of years, you're in another revaluation, your value will come down. But that's not correct. You know, turning the price system in Carlisle home upside down every couple of years is just not correct. And one quick consequence
Yeah,
is,
I do have to ask you to wrap it up fairly soon if you could,
Yeah.
Mr. Shen.
one of the
Thanks.
consequences, you know, you're gonna drive out, you know, most of us are retired people. You know, you're gonna drive us out of the property for the 40%, 50% increase of tax. So what's gonna happen? It will be reoccupied by young families. And the increase of costs on Carlisle, it would be a whole lot more than the tax you collect from us. Thank
Okay.
you. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate your comments. Yes, ma'am.
John.
All I want to say
Could you
is
introduce yourself and tell us your address?
Lesia Shaw.
Oh,
Stony. All I would like to say is,
You might want to speak a little louder so everybody can hear.
I beg your pardon. All I would like to say is that while the neighbors made substantial improvements to their property to make the value go up, the rest of us are living with the 50s, 60s, whatever design, linoleum floor, etc. I'm sorry, but that's the case. Why should our property be bounced up in value when in fact a buyer is not going to pay us the same kind of money they paid to someone who spent $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 to make improvements in order to receive the million plus whatever they got for their home, which is not what we are going to get for our home, yet our property taxes are going up. Is that fair? That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Shaw. Anyone else online on the Zoom call that wishes to make a comment? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Okay, anyone else in the audience here that would like to make a comment? All right, well, thank you to everyone that has come here tonight and offered their comments. And we certainly are hearing them and will do the work that we can do to try to address them or to follow up. So thank you all. All right.
I would like to say, if I may,
Please, Nathan.
I just want to be clear that, you know, the process for the public input is it allows anybody just to come up, but it's not necessarily something that's on the agenda or whatever, so we don't respond to it. So our lack of response is not because we don't care. It's not because of anything other than it's just the protocol is we don't respond to this because we don't want to get, as a whole rule, we don't respond to it just because we don't want to get into trouble with open meeting law.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Then we're going to move on to the appointments and resignations. And I think Chief Fong is here. Yes, hi, Chief. Welcome. Police Chief Fong.
I'd like to thank the board for allowing me to present tonight. This is a request for approval to fill a full-time police officer position, which would be changing Officer Eric Kukos' status from part-time to full-time employment with the police department. The select board previously had approved the hiring of a full-time officer for FY23 and another for FY24. And my hope was that we're able to cover some shortages with part-time personnel, but unfortunately, we currently have 2 officers that are absent due to medical leave. And we've had to resort to a lot of forced overtime to fill shifts. And so we've never gone short-handed and coverage has always been adequate on the street. However, forced overtime can be difficult for officers, especially those with families and other obligations. So Officer Kukos has pretty much completed his training. He's gotten great reviews from his supervisors and coworkers, and we've had an opportunity to review his work performance. He's been great. A full-time appointment for him would help us fill a need that we have at this point. We've invested time, training, and equipment in him, and given that there's a very competitive market for qualified officers, I think this would be a great opportunity for the department to fill a vacancy that we have right now. Thank
All
you.
right,
So
could I have a motion, please, and then we
Sure.
can discuss it if you choose.
I move to accept the recommendation of the interim chief of police and appoint Eric Kukos of Lowell, Massachusetts to serve as a full-time police officer with the Carlisle Police Department, subject to successful negotiations.
A second.
second.
All right, now we can open up for discussion. Any comments or questions?
I do have one quick question. Normally, seems to me you've already done background check and all that, so we
Yes.
don't, so we actually are appointing him. We're not authorizing you to start the process because
Yes, he's
there was a
already-
change in,
Right, he's already been
Post.
working as a part-time
got
officer.
it. Okay, I just wanted to double check
Thank
that
you.
we were following the right procedure there. Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? All right,
And we just went through it with the part-time part, so I don't have any questions about it or
Right.
anything.
right. So just for people in the audience, this is a police officer that we already went through this on when we agreed to hire him as a part-time officer. So we're just moving that to a full-time officer, as Chief Fong stated. All righty, so we can do this by voice vote. All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, the motion carries
Let me
unanimously.
do this next one.
Thank
very
you,
much.
Chief Fong.
Thank you.
I have a question about the next motion. Debbie Bentley's letter says that the candidate's name is Hathaway.
So Kate, not to interrupt, but we have to hold off on this appointment.
Oh,
So
so I
it
don't-
needs to move to the next meeting for administrative reasons.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
well,
So
okay,
next
I
time,
would-
get the names.
Well, actually,
So
Okay,
that they
here's
match
another,
top and
here's a-
bottom, that's all.
yeah,
Okay.
this is the correct name listed here.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure, before
yeah.
I made a motion, I just wanted to know.
I just
the
wondered
correct
if,
name.
if it's possible to make this appointment subject to the appointee verifying that she's a Carlisle resident. Because that's the issue.
I'm not comfortable saying that we can do that,
Oh,
given the
okay,
recommendation of the town clerk.
I see. Okay, all right, but then we can postpone it. That's fine.
Okay,
And put it on.
We got a name
Yep.
issue, residency issue, and the fact that the ESC didn't vote it in. So
No, they
Steve-
have approved it. This is an old letter, but
And do we
Never-
know that the charter requires them to be a resident? I think we have some
yeah, we have
groups that
lots of things where
where they aren't.
So to be fair, this came in late this afternoon, so I just don't feel comfortable
they're, yeah, good.
knowing what I should to give you a proper recommendation.
Let's get the right information.
all right, that's fine.
Okay.
All right, so we'll move ahead then to item 3, which is our favorite. Let's take a look at the dog order. So just
You know,
by way
got
of
time to do
a
this
little
now?
background. So this is concerning a dangerous dog that we held a first hearing about in December of 2022. So more than a year ago. And then we reviewed, we had some
December 21.
no, I'm sorry. Sorry, I misspoke. The initial hearing was on 10/21/21. The hearing that we held to reopen the order that we issued then, we held on December 20th of this last December, 2022. And so we've already had discussion with the dog owners. We took some other comments during the hearing. At our last meeting, we had a lengthy discussion about the orders that we were considering issuing and concluded that we wanted council to prepare an amended order. And that is what we're considering tonight. So this is the hearing on this has been closed, but we did not finalize our deliberations at the last meeting because we wanted to look at the order. So we are now looking at the proposed amendment to the dangerous dog order for this particular dog. And for the sake of the select board members, I think the key thing we should be looking at, the order, as some of you have seen before, and we've done this, lists what we did and the various evidence that we took or testimony that we took. And I think the key thing for us as a board then is to take a look at the orders, which actually start on page 7.
So I have
Well, there's something on page 4 that we have to look at.
so, but since we're on page 7, under orders, 1C.
Okay, before we do this, so you want to offer some corrections or amendments?
It's
Yeah,
not page, okay, what
Okay,
page is it of the
so-
document, not of your thing? What page?
I'm on page 4
On page 4.
Of the actual order,
The actual
of
document,
the
yes.
document,
of the order itself, not the way it is in our
Right.
packet. Yeah, okay, so page 4,
section orders, number 1C.
1C, yep.
That first
Thank you.
sentence isn't a complete sentence.
Yeah, now this is a
Oh, that was
mistake
what I
on the
had.
part of council. I had actually
Yes.
sent a correction. Let me pull it up here.
That whole
Uh,
section's kind of awkwardly.
Yeah,
worded.
so here's, unfortunately, I should have looked at it when she sent it back to me. She just said, great, I accept all your changes. And I just assumed she had. So that first sentence should read, where it ends, the sentence says, the home contains no single point of entry that the dog, and it should say may get outside. And then the second sentence, it says, to that end, the owner shall extend the existing fencing or create another barrier. Because remember, we discussed that we were not going to direct them to extend the fencing. We would,
So
make it
it
possible
says,
for
oh, the
them.
home contains,
okay, we're on 1C.
I know where we are. I'm
Okay,
saying,
so those are two specific changes that are substantial, I would say.
Yes,
in,
that
on
section-
1C. But let's go back though to the orders under the first section. These are the the A is a significant change in that we indicated that when the dog is outside, if he's not attended by one of the two owners, that the dog will be humanely muzzled. And furthermore, that when the dog is outside with one of the owners, when there are other non-household members present, the dog would be humanely muzzled. So that's the A order.
And the owners are named.
Correct. And the owners are
Yes.
named.
And we
And
could
there's
put it-
one typo where it
there's a
says
typo.
lest instead of least,
Yeah.
right? But is that acceptable to us, the way that is?
That was what we talked about.
Okay.
Yes.
B is virtually the same content, but it's describing what happens when the dog is indoors.
That's correct.
But the same thing, except that it says could be secured inside a crate or humanely muzzled at all times when non-household members are present. Is that acceptable to everybody?
Sure.
Okay, then,
Okay.
yeah,
yeah.
okay, you good?
Well, but it's missing the part when it's indoors and there's nobody else at home. That's this whole thing missed that whole part.
Isn't that already part of the original? Is this?
No,
the
so you want to
amendments?
add a line that says, and when the homeowners are not present, the
The
dog is in its crate
It's crate or muzzled. Because if,
when they're
if,
not home.
if a fire broke out and the
yeah.
fireman went in there, he's gotta be protected.
Okay, when the indoors on the premises of the owners, when non-household, so can you suggest an amended, a sentence to add there? Or what would that, let's see, we would say, and further, if the owners are not present, the dog will be secured in its crate.
It's
or
it's D. It's
wanna-
D.
Oh, it's
When the
in,
house is vacant, when the house is,
so you want to make this a D?
yeah, I
Item
want
D.
it to.
Okay.
Whole different thing.
Okay, so
make it
hang on, let's,
crystal clear.
okay. So let's get to D in just a second. So then C, the way the language we've added, so the first sentence, which I already reviewed, but I could say it again, it's about so that there's no single point of entry that will allow the dog to get outside. And it also, requires them to extend the existing fencing or create another barrier that allows for no point of exit where the dog can get outside,
Yes.
basically. Or then item D would say when the dog owners are not present in the home, the dog will be secure in his crate or be humanely muzzled.
Yep.
Right? Is that acceptable to people?
Sure.
Okay, so that's item D. Then the point 2 is the same as it has
Yeah.
been. Point 3 is the same as it has been. Point 4 is added. So
Yeah.
this is just putting in the order what the owners already started to do, which is to tell anybody that's coming to do work on their home. They notify, they tell those contractors that they have to notify the owner before they have any worker enter the property.
Right.
And is
What
that
number are you on?
acceptable? Number 4.
So these are unchanged?
No,
these-
number
Yeah,
4 is
four
an
is new.
addition.
No, but 2 and 3 are unchanged.
Correct.
Okay, I only have like.
Hang on, we got 2 more to go. So
You don't want to comment? is what
I
you're saying?
do. You're talking about number 4?
Well, I'm back at just a remark, because like I also didn't read it closely, but as long as you're making edits in paragraph 2, I mean, we use owner lowercase and owners capital and then their names interchangeably. She ought to clean all that up.
Wait, are you on this one?
It
Item
says the
2?
premises of the owner.
Oh,
It's
you-
ambiguous, like we should be consistent, as long as she's cleaning up. She should clean up. We
Okay,
should Have one.
you want to
nomenclature.
add an S
Capital
there.
O owners, capital O
And
owners,
have
Gotcha.
a defined term.
and the
Okay.
defined term, and then.
Okay,
And then earlier too, and now that we're into it. It should be defined so that it's clear that Bukowitz, Spunkowitz, and Simek are the owners.
well, it is defined further up there, but.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I would say, yes,
but,
Simic and.
but it would
Bouquet,
be
which,
helpful, right?
And then in paren,
Right.
here and after, the owner,
Correct.
whatever.
One of those things,
Just
right,
yeah.
at the
consistent.
beginning that
Yeah.
says the reference to owners
Exactly.
implies Simic and Bunkunovich.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
Okay
so
with 4. I'm okay.
Okay, and so 4 is right. All right, so everybody's fine with 4.
Yeah.
And then 5. This is
Same.
No, we didn't have that before.
we
Sue, but
didn't
it's
have
okay.
that as its own separate thing. It was sort of included. So that's right. So that's just clarifying that. And so then order number 6 says effective immediately. Now,
Wait a second, excuse me, did we have locks? What happened to the,
That's what I was gonna bring up.
what happened to the
oh, the
locks?
locks on the gates. Wait, oh, shoot.
Did she do this over vacation?
So I
She
think,
had
Yeah.
somebody else in the office
but
do it.
I think we need to be careful about how we're saying locks, right?
Yes.
Because there's, I don't. So it,
Oh, this
depends
says,
on-
what are the, no, I'm sorry, it says, I'm sorry, Nathan, but I'm just looking at the wording, so wording on part A.
Yeah, so that,
Okay. That's
The-
where it is, part A.
if we're leaving it up to them. If we're leaving it up to them as to how they're gonna deal with all the other doors, right, it's a really big difference. If they are to decide they're going to put a fence around the entire house, now every single gate into that fence has to have a lock. But if they have a place where they let the dog out in the back, and that's a separate fenced area, then they can just lock that area. And I just think it's important to understand which one they're going to do, right? So if, I think it increases the risk if they put a fence around the entire house and people are coming and going through that gate versus, like being just, prescriptive about, hey, you have your backyard, that's where you let your dog out, that's where you put the locks, but we also want you to prevent, in order to be able to prevent the dog from bolting out of the house, we want you to put a second barrier for the dog, but that's not to be incorporated into, we're letting the dog out space,
Okay,
right? Because it detracts
Right.
from if it doesn't have a lock.
Exactly,
it-
exactly,
okay, so we're gonna need to rework that.
yeah.
We don't really, okay, so let's continue through this, but I think my recommendation will be that we send it back for one more.
Yeah,
Even
we
though
have
it
to.
means it's delayed in getting out to the owners.
Yeah,
We send it back for one more revision. All right, so that would be I guess, under that section then, Nathan, which is 1A. There'd be some further language about, no, not A. There's
that's under the,
that talks about
C,
the
I think it's-
fencing.
See,
it's
C,
under
it's
C.
the one
right.
they have to reword. anyway.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it would be C that needs some additional wording about,
They can't
gates
mix, they
and
can't
locks and
mix the
security.
backyard
right,
fenced area with these
Right.
other.
Which
Right.
is why I didn't want them to say extend the fence to begin with.
Right.
okay.
Okay,
All right, and then let's see. Yeah, everything,
Everything
we've
else
gone
is
through the others,
okay.
and then failure to comply, this is by order, this is based on the statute. The, below the number 6, the thing, the consequences.
Yeah.
That's just by statute, and then these the bolded comments on the next page are added by us in this letter, right? To make it
Yes.
clear that euthanasia is we're reserving the right to further amend this order, and it could include euthanasia, regardless of whether or not the owners are in compliance or non-compliance with
Yes.
the provisions of the order. All
well,
right,
it'll probably,
we're-
and if it were another biting incident, it would probably be because there was no compliance, but
But in
obviously,
any
we
case,
can't
we
think of
can't-
every single instance,
Eventuality, right.
eventuality, so it's on them to
Right.
make sure that they think everything through and forward.
right, all right, so then I will let's table wait, we didn't make a motion on this
No, we
yet, did
didn't.
we? Okay, so that's clear then, Ryan, right? We're gonna go back with these changes, and I'll communicate with Jenny our town council on that. Okay,
Okay.
and so that'll mean our meeting on the 31st. We'll have to add a little time for this one. So what I will try, no, what I will try to do is make sure we get from town council the changes well in advance, so everybody here can take a look at it.
That would
and
be
we can
nice.
Get it cleaned up if necessary before we actually are gonna vote on it on the 31st. Okay, thank you all. All right, so let's move on.
So do we think that the changes that we're looking for are substantive enough that we couldn't approve it pending those changes?
I want to see
Just
the
to get it done
language.
faster?
Yeah, I know, that's what I was thinking
They're
about
already
too.
doing, I think they're doing the bulk of what we asked.
Well, I just drove by today because I drive by that way and there's nothing in the front, nothing
No
blocking the front
extension.
door.
Fencing, I
Yeah.
can tell. I
No, I
can
don't
tell
think we
them
wanna
that they
do
need
that.
to.
No,
prepare for
I think we
I-
need to do it through this.
I think it has to be
Right.
done through this and I would,
It's okay.
I
just wanted
understand,
to-
but I would really like it to be written correctly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Got
Before I send it.
I think unfortunately, I agree with that, so. All right, let's move on then to welcome our Council on Aging and Human Services, both our director and some of the board members. I don't know if you all want to pull up chairs or how you want to do this, but please come on up to the table and welcome. And we set aside a good chunk of time for this, and I know you have
And we're
lots
just
to
eating
share with
into
us,
it.
so let's get into it. We're a little bit late, but we will give you your full time. And for those in the audience, I wonder if we can turn around the presentation so folks that are here in person can see it. Thank you very much. All right, because we have it in our packets.
Okay,
Okay, thanks to Joan.
all right. Well,
Welcome, the Director of our Council on Aging and Human Services.
thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present. I have it right here.
I know, but you need to see what's on the screen.
Okay.
She's got it. Well, you can't see this end.
Joan, do you need to open your board meeting?
This
Is it a joint
okay.
meeting? Oh, it's not. a joint meeting.
Exactly.
Okay. So I appreciate the members of the board that came to this presentation and also for all the help because it was really a collaborative effort to respond to the request, which included a summary of our goals and our charter and how the board works. And so this is how I understood the assignment. So the first thing was, what is our existing charter? So you see that on the screen. As we changed our name, we talked about what we wanted to do to modify the charter. So the second slide was the proposed, which just adds some language, which is in red, that just reworks the language to talk about active aging and to include people under 60 as well. So residents of any age. So we just thought that that better reflected what we're actually doing. So I don't know, it doesn't seem to be controversial, but if anyone has any questions or comments, that was the only change in the charter.
Yeah, it was ratified actually by the town meeting, so.
Well, the red language was new.
Yeah, so,
The
question,
name
do
is-
we need to approve this?
Is
Is it
this,
the Council on Aging?
yeah,
We'll go through the whole thing, but I'm just, the point of order is, or clarification, is this something the select board has to?
It's our charter.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
yes.
We'll come back. I don't know if you're aware of that, but so we'll come back to that. But yeah, thanks,
So-
Joan. So thanks for putting it in red so we can clearly see what's being
So-
proposed.
Right. The mission and purpose are things, are language that we developed when we did our strategic planning process. We're towards the last quarter of our 2-year strategic plan. So this is the mission and the purpose that we have been operating under, just for context. You requested a list of board members, their terms, and whether they were full members, associates. So that's the next slide. I did get a question about why do we have associate members? Associate members don't have voting rights. We use the associate membership for people who may be interested in learning more about serving on the board and want to try it out for 1 year without, being a voting member. And also for people whose terms have been completed, but they want to stay engaged, so they can be an associate member for 1 year and then they could be reelected to the board. So you can see the terms are staggered. So if there's no questions, I can just keep going. So, to frame the conversation, which is really going to be focused on space needs and how we can best serve, the growing senior population. Carlisle's population of seniors is now 30.6, and that is exceeding what it is in Massachusetts. That was a question that I got from David. So, in 2010, Massachusetts had 19.4 residents, 60 plus. Carlisle had 20.5. So that's only a 1% difference. In 2020, Massachusetts had 23.2 residents, 60 plus. Carlisle had 31.3. So now we're up to an 8% difference. And projected 2030 is a 9% difference. So 26% of Massachusetts will be 60 plus, 35% of Carlisle. So you can see that we're tracking, substantially different, and the gap is widening. So, we have 1,675 residents, and 30% of them are 60 plus.
You mean
30% of them.
households,
Households.
1,600 must be households.
We have more than 60.
Oh, sorry,
5,000.
households. Yes. And 30% of the population is, no, 1,675 residents are 60 and older in Carlisle, which represents 30% of the population.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yes,
Seniors rock.
as the slide says, yes. We served about 800 of them in 2022. And David wanted to know, what do I mean by unduplicated? Well, we have a lot of regulars, so the same people are coming to exercise and mahjong and receiving Meals on Wheels and going to support groups week after week after week. And our database tracks all those contacts. So we might have had 11,000 contacts, but we were serving about 800 people, just to give you, a framework for what our reach is.
To say another way, about half the seniors touch COAHS at some
Right.
point.
Right. And it was more during the, acute pandemic, because we were contacting like almost everybody in a blast. But this is more, we see them, we talk with them. It's not just an email. So, all right.
And do you think that 2022, last year, should be fairly representative of what you see going forward?
Well,
I'm just thinking about COVID and
Yes, I
concern
mean,
about going out and,
if everything stayed the same,
yeah.
I mean, I think that some people aren't going to go back to the level of congregate, gathering that they did before. So I think some changes may be long-term. So this was a graph on the senior population, just so you can see how it's been going up. I mean, there was a spike a couple of years ago in 2020, but other than that, 2022 is the highest percentage. So that's just,
What's really interesting about that, and I'm the last person that should talk about anything statistical or math, but not only is the percentage going up, but the numbers going up. So that means it's an even a larger increase.
right. And, we know seniors don't want to leave Carlisle. I mean, they really don't. They don't want to go to assisted living. They don't want to move to a condo out of town. That just seems to be, this is where they want to stay. So, that's speaks to the town, but also sort of informs some of our goals and objectives. My screen doesn't have this anymore. No.
This is connecting to Zoom.
It's okay. I can just do my thing. So, we want to address, so by way of introduction, we're trying to address what is it that makes it difficult for some people to remain in Carlisle? And, we don't have that commercial center, the beauty center, restaurants. And I mean, we have Ferns, which is great, but we don't have the gathering focus that some other towns do. And so certainly in the pandemic, and even before and after, some people who live by themselves are lonely, they're isolated, you know, it really impacts them. They're far from their neighbors. So having a range of programs and services will give them security, community connection, and enrichment. And that's, you know, mostly what we wanted to talk about and what the board agreed we should really be prioritizing. So while we have 8 goals that I've listed that can be directly tied to the master plan, I've prioritized them because I didn't want to run out of time by talking about the less controversial or, you know, interesting goals. So clearly space limitations have been requiring us to juggle programs and services and makes it harder for us to offer, you know, hot food and, you know, to do counseling and to give people sort of private space. I mean, there's so many things that other communities are able to do that we can't do. And so, you know, getting dedicated space where people could just drop in. If they get up in the morning and they don't have anything on their calendar, they could come to, you know, this space and there would be coffee and there would be muffins and there would be staff and maybe there'd be other people there. I mean, that's how it was when I worked in Lincoln, where we had the old town hall, and it was great. I mean, they wanted a community center, but you know, everybody always wants what they don't have. But where I was sitting, I could see it in action and we had plenty of space to do all those things and people would come for no reason. Whereas here, I'm very grateful for the Clark room, but people come at 10:30 because that's when their classes. They come for Mahjong, they come for, you know, it's not like organic, like I'm lonely, I just want to see who's around, like you might do at a general store or something. So, okay. In addition to, you know, that goal, other things that we're going to be talking about is housing, affordable housing, the property tax burden, and transportation. So goal 1 is advocating for space upgrades and resources so that we can have functional, accessible areas, you know, for all of our programs and activities. And to do something, propose something realistic, both short and long term, that prioritize the needs of seniors, because we're aware that there's a lot of competing needs in Carlisle. We understand about public safety, you know, so we don't want to get lost in the shuffle, and we want to make sure that whatever plan starts to move forward, there's some recognition of the needs of the seniors. And so, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean a multi-million-dollar community center. You know, we want something that's doable in the next couple of years, not, you know, something that sounds good, but maybe isn't going to happen. So, and that, you know, ties to the master plan recommendation. And so, you know, we've been talking about how we can integrate into a plan that's maybe, John Ballantyne is saying that maybe there's discussion about a Conant town campus, and that could we get integrated into that in some way with the parking and the, you know, whatever that would entail. Fortunately, we have members of our board who are on, you know, the facilities committee, you know, different building committees, and that's extremely helpful. So, you know, it's obviously our goal to provide educational, cultural, social, you know, all kinds of opportunities for seniors. And this room has been a great addition, and we appreciate the support that we can use this room a lot, most of the time during the day. And we were able to upgrade it. And so, you know, we just want to sort of take that to the next step. And so the board wanted me to put together a matrix of all the programs we have, where we have them, you know, what the kind of space needs are. You know, for reference, this room is 825 square feet, which I know because I was in charge of the flooring. And so it had to be measured. But you can see this kitchen is not, you know, suitable to serve a hot meal. And, you know, the space isn't really big enough to have, you know, some of our group lunches could have maybe, you know, 60 people. I mean, I think it used to be 80, right, Verna? But, you know, we haven't seen more than 50 or 60, and you can't fit that many people in this room. So this is good for men's breakfast, women's breakfast, things like that, but it just has limitations. So, you know, that we've been using the fire station, we've been using the 3 churches, Ferns, I mean, kind of anything we can get our hands on. But that also, you know, doesn't always work for people. We get feedback, you know, from certain people when, you know, the pastor says the prayer at the beginning of lunch, some people will say that I'm not, you know, there's always something. Whereas I feel like when we do things here in town hall, it just seems like it's easier to make everybody happy. You know, it's not tied to one group or another. So, you know, in looking at what I thought we needed, It's about 3,000 square feet, and I broke it out into a multi-purpose room, a full-size kitchen, a meeting room for support groups, a private counseling office, and staff offices that would, right now we have to have people only working in the office, except for me, 3 days a week, because we can't have everybody there at once because it's too noisy and it's too chaotic and people can't get their work done. And so, that's fine, but it would be really nice if we had enough space that, we could make that work in a different way. And, I noticed that Harvard recently renovated a building of 5,000 square feet, and they're about the same size as we are. And that's worked really well for them, the town of Harvard. So, any solution that would give us something around that amount, I think would make a big difference and a big impact, because no matter what we do, every senior isn't going to get, the COA-HS wants to be available to everyone and wants to help everyone, but, not everybody engages with their council on aging and human services. I think we've done a lot to get more newer seniors to come in and people that have never engaged with us before. But I don't think, even if we had the perfect community center, all 675 seniors would not be coming in. That's just not how it works in this business.
Can I ask a quick question. What's the difference between goal 1 and goal 2?
There's not that much difference.
'Cause goal 2 seems to support goal 1 of wanting more space. Or
True. One of them focused more on the programs, I think. Like I was encouraged to be more specific about, providing programs is kind of our core business. So we wanted to just make sure that there was a goal that's explicitly said, we're always trying to provide a range of programs. But yes,
does
that's,
that mean that some things, could some things in goal 2 be accomplished without more space because it's talking about programs? Or
yes. Well, we're doing some of those things now without more space, and we're doing some things on Zoom. So yes, we are providing all these things. I would argue that we could provide more depth and breadth and impact with space. But yes, I would say they're related goals. So then, I just listed other goals that tie to the master plan, because I felt like that's what you were asking of us. So, working with the assessor on property tax exemption for seniors, we can see from today that, there's a lot of concerned people and a lot of concerned seniors about, how they're going to pay their. Go ahead. Yeah.
So you don't have to wait around for later in the agenda, but I know you put in a comment about things that you'd like to discuss with Simon Cataldo when he comes in 2 weeks. And one of those, you referenced a bill. Can you briefly describe the difference between that and our current tax relief?
I think the bill that I was talking about, Kate knows about this. It was a bill where the state would come behind the exemptions that the towns would do. So that if we granted certain exemptions to seniors based on whatever criteria, the state would then reimburse the town. So that's like a huge deal.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to know, like, what's up with that? Like, that would be a game changer.
And that is something that MGL has been discussing, but not.
They
active.
had in the past, and yeah. And I've been, every time I see any of our legislators, I always bring it up, but
So related, but not the same question. Do we have a statutory? I know that last year we changed the terms a little bit, right?
Well, that's different. What we did last year was change when they defer taxes. I'm not talking about deferrals now. We changed the
actual
interest rate and the eligibility.
Now
I'm
you're
talking
talking
about
about
people like getting exempt. And other surrounding towns, Concord, Sudbury, a number of towns have created programs for the neediest seniors. And that's allowed them to take off, $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 from their tax bill and not owe it. It doesn't go against their estate.
And is that under, maybe it's a rank question, is that under the purview of the town to just?
There's a local option to design the program, but the state legislature must approve it.
Each town's.
Yes, individually. So we would have to submit a bill for Carlisle. There's tons of bills for all the other towns. And so the assessor and I have been talking about, what are the levers going to be? Like, how would we figure that out? So, but we're working on that. And I think that's an important thing. And I've gotten a lot of feedback from seniors about that, or the idea of freezing taxes at a certain age, but I hadn't gone down that road. I was going more down the exemption road. Yep. And then I know we're going to have a presentation on housing, after this. But one of our goals has been to try to figure out how to reduce the cost burden for seniors, and especially the seniors at Benfield's, because it's not the same type of affordable housing community as Village Court. You don't just pay 30% of your income. And it's been difficult for people to keep up with the rent. So we were able to develop a rental assistance program. And that's, one of the ways that we've made a big difference. And then we're exploring home sharing because we know there's just a lot of people that they can't afford their house and they're lonely and they have needs that aren't getting met. And other communities have been successful in trying to match people and do something with that. And so we want to look more into, would that work for people and what kind of agreements do you have and how do you get that off the ground? So
That's a great idea, by the way, I think.
yeah, I mean, I think if you had the right match, it
Yeah.
could work really well. So and so transportation is something where we had an actual monetary ask that I presented to the finance committee. And that is because we have all 3 vehicles now that we control. We don't have flow transportation. We're doing medical rides to Boston, 200 rides a month. And we are using leftover special appropriation money to pay the drivers this year because Kelly saw that we had it, which, from old social worker funds, but that's going to be gone by June 30th. And so I calculated out, basically how much we would need to keep services the same next year. And that's $10,654. So I've already requested that for FinCom, but it would be great if I could get support from the select board for that, because we don't want to, right now, we pretty much accommodate any request we get for transportation from a senior or person with disabilities. We rarely, unless they call us up at, 9 o'clock and say, they have to be in Boston at 10:30. But, we really don't say no, even if we have to, get volunteers or whatever. And we would like to keep it like that. And that's also a way a lot of new people come to us. We have like the gateways, the medical equipment shed is a gateway, transportation is a gateway. Oddly, Mahjong appears to be a gateway. But
And so what transportation option did we lose?
so we had a contract with something called Flow Transportation, which was like a livery service down in Leominster. And they would buy vouchers from us and they would take trips. Flow would transport people and then they would pay for the voucher and then Flow would bill us. And so after my first year or year and a half, I started to kind of question whether that made sense.
And so $10,000 is that's an increase over what we were paying Flow in order to backfill it.
No, it's just that our drivers are now working more hours. So I want to get the driver's salaries into the budget because they're doing more driving. Before,
But we're
Flow,
no longer paying Flow.
we're not paying Flow the balance, for the rides because they charged more than the vouchers, cost. So residents were getting a break and we were paying the balance.
Right, and that's calculated into.
It's factored in.
10,000.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But residents now can go to Boston for a medical appointment for $30 round trip, which is cheaper than Flow was. And, they're doing that about once a week. So it's not a huge thing. But when we have someone going to Boston, we have to put another driver on for all the other rides because that ride takes up most of the day because the driver waits for them to be done with their appointment that brings them home.
Mhm.
So then I just talked about mental health, which is something that we were working on in the strategic plan, and we got an ARPA grant to do some mental health counseling virtually. And Carol, the social worker, is doing caregiver bereavement groups. And we've been expanding friendly visitor and respite programs. So we're really trying to make sure that we know and are engaged with people that have unmet needs, because that's both of our orientation and, people aren't, you have to build a relationship with someone to really know what's going on with them. And so we love all the fun enrichment add-on programs, but there are people that are really suffering. And those are the people that, we've been working on figuring out how to better help them. So that's a goal. And then, fiscal sustainability. I mean, even though the COA-HS wasn't mentioned in that master plan goal as a, stakeholder, we have been trying to do that. I mean, we have gotten, of course, we get the community chest grant, but I've applied for an additional community chest grant. We have the Friends grants, which has been hugely helpful. And we did get a big increase from the Mass Executive Office of Elder Affairs, mostly because of not because of anything we did, just because the census went up so much that we got a 50% increase in our state allocation, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then, in terms of like updating manuals and making sure that there's institutional knowledge, we're all responsible for doing manuals so that anybody that needed to step into one of our roles would at least have a starting point, which would be helpful. This is when this happens, this is when that happens, so that you're not just like, what's the annual report and when does that do? It's like, so that's really just a summary of what we're doing and how it relates to the master plan. And we do want to say that we feel very supported. We feel like everything that we've asked for pretty much has been well received in terms of all the ARPA grants, the medical equipment shed, changing our name, reorganizing the staff. I mean, that's been really great because I feel like it's helped us deliver better services and serve the seniors better. And so as a new person, it was really excellent to feel like, people were listening and open to things. And it wasn't just like, no, you can't do that. And so we're really appreciative of that and hope that we can find, a good way to move forward with the things that we're requesting.
Thank you, Joan. The great presentation and very clear. Also, I think you get an A+ for actually following the 4 points that we were asking to hear
That is
about.
who I am to my core,
Yeah.
really. I mean,
And to the board as well. Thank
and they
you
were
for-
hugely helpful. We had two
Yeah.
separate meetings where we went over it and we revised it. So it was really a collaborative process. And I got a lot of good feedback and great support. And because they're all Carlisle residents, they've been here a long time, so it was really a good exercise, I think, for us.
Yeah. Other comments, questions?
And I just want to echo, really crisp, nice presentation, and you're doing a lot. I mean, a lot of the goals you're just bootstrapping on your own with your staff, and your staff is great. I've gotten to know the board a little more and I appreciate it. So, and I just want to comment for us. We need to vote the charter, and do we need to vote? What do we do on the request? That just gets passed to FinCom?
Yeah, the deliberating account.
The
The 10,000.
10,000, yeah, that's already in,
Yeah,
right,
that's already in.
that's already been
So
done.
our only action tonight, or if it's a subsequent night, would be to vote the charter.
That's correct.
Well, is it a bylaw? It looked like it was in the form of a bylaw. So if the charter is in the bylaw, we need to put it on the warrant. Vote to put it on the warrant to present it. So,
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that either.
because it doesn't look like our regular charter when it had,
Yeah.
No, it does
You're right.
not.
It looks like a section of the bylaw.
it
Right,
does. So,
3.23, et cetera.
So-
Yeah.
so,
So we'll take the assignment, or the town administrator will take the assignment to figure out how we would include these changes. Yeah, but it may have to go to town meeting.
But we could take a vote to say that those changes are acceptable to us, right?
Yeah,
At least tick
We could do that
box.
tonight.
Yeah.
People comfortable doing that? Because
I
let's see.
move
what-
we
yeah.
propose changing section 3.2.3 if it is a bylaw. Council on Aging and Human Services, section 3.2.3.1 as presented tonight.
second,
Any discussion?
I just had a question. I know it says 60 and older. Is that statutory? I mean, how did that get established, or does anyone know? I was just
Well, I
curious.
think the Executive Office of Elder Affairs defines
Defines.
seniors as 60 and older. So in other words, the money that we get is for 60 and older. So I think it's E EOEA.
Coming up, Snow.
I know, well. I was thinking Social Security.
It's over your
60
shoulder,
right
man.
It's
60's coming up.
Eligibility,
So
when
this-
is he eligible?
Before,
Somebody, here he
you
comes.
get this before Social Security. so.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If there are no other questions, let's do this by voice vote, please. All those in favor. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, this carries unanimously, and we will follow up to figure out how to make the change official.
Okay.
Joan, I do want to ask you about, or just note that the really significant piece of this obviously is the space needs. And at the end of before you do under the goal number 2, you say support the proposal to create new COAHS space within the Conant Town campus. Do you have more you want? We have a few more minutes given your allotted time. We're running a little bit late for those that are here for the joint planning board, select board meeting, but we're you're starting at 8:20, so we do have a few more minutes.
That was
Yeah,
language-
what's your
Well,
thinking
John
about the
Valentine
board? Okay.
suggested that I phrase it that way.
Okay.
But I think that the idea is just that whatever is going to be done in a public safety context, there could be capacity for another 3,000 square feet somewhere in that mix. And we wanted to have that. Yes, there has to be some parking. Yes, he had this whole idea. I don't know the land well enough and the spaces well enough to talk
Mhm.
about exactly what it is, but just kind of that we would be part of the thinking in terms of whatever new development occurs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's what we try to task our committee to
Right.
think about as well.
Right.
As it originally.
right. And yeah, so and that's what you put in as a possible solution under your space request. Right, the same idea, something.
Right.
Yeah, of it being included in that. Okay. I just wanted to point that out for all of us.
But it's really support evaluation of including the 3,000 square feet for these purposes in anything we may do. Not really a Conant Town campus is right. It isn't
Right.
that.
It's TBD, but I agree. I think, my advice to Joan was, don't be too prescriptive. You describe the need, which she's done very well, and she's done a good job, or the board COAHS has done a good job in coming up with defining space needs, pretty concrete, specifically. And then it's kind of in our lap, and we are having discussions with the other boards and thinking about a more holistic view of all those needs. And so I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Joan, and thank you to the board of the.
Gee, and I was going to propose a tent on the patio, so.
All right, excellent. Well, we've got a few minutes and I don't know even that all of the planning board is here yet. So I'm wondering if we can skip ahead. Yeah, because we've got 10 minutes till the time. Why don't we do the cemetery deed transfers and then look at the minutes briefly? So that would be
All right,
page 108.
I got it.
In the packet.
I move the select board vote to transfer land in the public burial ground at the Green Cemetery described in deed number 794 as Lot D, section 336, grave number 3 to David E. Sanderson, 70 Forest Park Drive, Carlisle, Mass.
May I have a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
do we have the deed?
Yeah, it's right below it. Oh, no,
Right, it
not
needs
the
to sign.
actual. No, we don't.
Okay.
We'll
Um,
probably do it.
We'll have to
A
do that at the
DocuSign.
next meeting, I
Okay.
think. Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the minutes. We have the
Hmm.
3 sets of minutes. We may want to
Okay.
just take them one at a time. So we have December 13th, December 20th, and January 3rd.
Not in that order.
First in the packet is January 3rd, so it sort of goes backwards. Any comments about the January 3 minutes?
I sent something to Jen. I'm
Was it substantive or more edit?
trying to
edits of-
remember now because I don't seem to see my notes on this one.
Uh-huh.
That's hang on. See any notes on any of the other ones? No, all my notes disappeared. Okay. I don't know why. There was. I don't think that one was the substantive one. The one that was substantive was where.
One
was
of the other.
one of the other ones
sets.
where they had Nathan voting aye for something he voted nay for.
So should we go ahead
Uh,
then? Are people comfortable voting on the January 3 minutes to
I,
approve them?
I had another change and we talked at
January 3?
January
Okay.
3 on the police chief search committee, or screening committee. There
Yep.
was a comment in here, the select board agreed to amend the second paragraph to, and an understanding and support for Carlisle's master plan, including environmental sustainability as it relates to the police department. We certainly talked
Correct
about it,
language
but that was not the language we
we
agreed to.
Settled on.
Yeah,
Right.
and the other thing that we talked about, so yeah, now I'm remembering, was that there was the incorrect information in the job description of how many staff were in the police department, and that was going to get fixed, and that should be noted in the minutes. So that if anybody's reading the job description in the minutes, they understand that that was not correct information. So and I did send all these things to Jen.
Yeah, and she
Um,
mentioned to me that she had, you're right, this job description still has the incorrect information about the
Yeah,
number
so
of staff. So Jen mentioned to me this afternoon, there were a few changes. I don't know, do we
So
feel
I-
comfortable amending this without seeing the,
I'd like.
I
to
mean,
see-
accepting it with the amendments we're discussing?
It's
or
the most recent one. I would think we can even hold off
It's
this
not
one.
critical,
you
yeah.
know,
And
another-
go back?
Yeah.
It's also presented twice, but some has.
I have them, I have it three
Yeah,
times.
three
I-
times.
It's like different things are in it.
Yeah.
I was totally confused.
Yeah,
Oh,
so,
gosh, okay.
so let's
was-
let's
Does it
not
hold
do
up on
those.
Any of these
Yeah,
minutes
but-
or,
Let's start over.
Well, no, we can do the other ones, but not January
Sure.
3
okay,
for sure.
so let's take a look at the one in,
It's January 3rd.
we have December 13th,
Okay,
which is page
Oh, yeah.
120, if you're looking at your packet.
yeah,
yeah,
say,
and-
I did give something, you know what? We can't do those either
Well,
because I
you
gave
have
her
to
something
practice this
substantive that everybody should read.
I'm sorry, say
I,
it again,
I
Kate.
said on the next one, this December
13?
13th,
Yeah.
no, sorry, December 20th. Is the next one.
Oh, I have December, did I miss one?
Yeah, you missed the 20th.
December 13th,
Oh,
December 20th.
It's December 20th is in between the third and the. Well,
Yeah,
obviously
so-
that's State orders, well, so that's stupid.
Yeah, no,
Oh.
Kate, at least in the packet, it
Oh,
goes to January 3, then it goes to December 20,
And then keep going back.
and then it,
and then
It's
December 13th. Right, so I'm in the December 20th ones.
You would like to hold off on doing that.
I'm trying to remember, yeah. Because there was stuff again about the hearing and what was said about how we wanted the. Oh, no, sorry. I wish I had my notes.
well, why don't we
I
just
think we'll
hold
just
off
start
on
there.
all
Yeah.
three of these?
Yeah.
But
So
there is an edit in the
what I
last
would-
one, which is, it shows that I'm voting aye for the
That's,
voting machine and I didn't. voted
I
got
against
you.
it.
yes, and I sent that to Jen.
Okay.
All right, so what I'd like to ask of
So-
each of us, though, if you haven't looked at these closely, or if you have a correction, to make sure you send it to Jen, if you would, and if you think you already did.
I know I
great,
did.
But I don't know if you included everything that.
No,
And
I
did
didn't
you
include
send
what-
Your corrections about the police chief?
I didn't send them.
Okay, so
Okay.
if
I
you
sent
could,
it you the,
So how
Right.
does that work for final review though?
yeah, how do you want to do it?
Because then we're approving something that we actually haven't read because it wasn't in the packet.
No,
no, I'm
no.
not saying to approve anything.
No, I'm saying
Oh,
in general, if we're sending in our comments ahead of time
Yeah,
and then those are gathered. Then
Well,
we
what-
don't have time to review them before we're voting on them that night. Unless that.
Right,
After
sorry.
we get a red line, so we know what changed, so we don't have to read everything.
right,
again.
the goal would be, I guess, right on Thursday or Friday, when we get the packet and we see the minutes in it, we should send in our changes and then get, I guess maybe Ryan, you can work out with Jen. How is she gonna get back?
You know
those
what?
revised minutes to us prior to when we need to vote on?
No.
Or could she send
Uh,
the
it-
minutes
they
out
have to-
earlier?
They have to go
in the
out. I think
packet.
it would be even better if the minutes went out the same week that we had the meeting. So if we have a meeting on Tuesday, we get the minutes that Thursday,
Well,
we have a week to give it, we get it.
that's a resource, question. I mean, Jen's
Well,
doing a
or-
lot of other
We could
things.
just
Okay,
stagger,
but-
them. We could just stagger them, right? We could be voting this week on the 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
So we we provide our input and then.
yes.
Right, I don't know, Brian, do you want to speak to this or?
We just need-
Similar to
to policy, so I would recommend that you get a draft. Review it and comment in one packet, and then the next packet you vote it. Probably make it simplest.
Could we, I mean, can we get them in Word?
I was gonna
I'm not
say,
a Mark text guy and it's PDF is such a pain.
that's why I don't in fact have my notes, because I put them in PDF, but
Jen's gotta edit each one of those that comes in,
Right.
just
Then make one person responsible. I don't-
Or could you do it as a Google Doc or something like
that's
that?
good.
Whatever they are,
I
controls
can't-
who's changing what.
Can't.
yeah,
You can't do that, no.
no.
There's not,
No one else.
I mean, that's the thing. You get, you could do workflow. If you do it early enough, you could do it in sequence, right? You can do that, but it's not efficient.
So
Wait.
instead of putting it here,
That's
If,
fine.
if we get it as a Word document and, track changes is on, and when she gets it, she'll see what we changed.
That's what we do at the office.
well, how about we leave this to Ryan to figure out with
I think
Jen,
Jen and Jen can figure it out.
right? And that the goal would be that we have the ability to send in changes, corrections, whatever, in advance of then getting a final version that we have enough time to look at in order to vote on them at the meeting, at the appropriate select board meeting,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the only challenge with your SharePoint thing, I'm still stuck on that, is that if everybody's kind of in there working on the same thing at the same,
Right.
you're gonna have, so you almost need one person like Jen who just says, okay, I've taken the comments and I'm gonna use my judgment to.
That's what I don't think we can do that, because that would be deliberating, right?
Yeah, exactly. We can't.
Well, I
What
don't
it
know.
would allow you to do is to download the same document
Uh-huh.
and then provide.
So read
comments,
only
And then she could edit.
Oh, you can't edit?
We can prevent you from. maneuvering.
I don't know, that's a good point about it. I think you're off the simple, harder way, the safe way.
Well,
Send
let's,
out Word.
well, let's let them figure out the way to do this.
Well,
right?
there's an OML consideration.
Yeah, they'll think about that, I'm sure. Okay, so these we're gonna set aside for now
Download Word,
and we'll. Well,
download your own Word document.
Yeah.
all right, we'll come back then next meeting, we'll hope to have the final revised versions of these. All right, so I think we're about
Believe it or
ready.
not, minutes brought us all the way up to 8:20.
Yeah, we got some time. Okay, so let me check, let's see.
Everybody's here.
I
I see
I
Madeline.
see Addie here. Hi, Addie. Who else is
Beverly,
in the room? from the
Barney.
Planning board?
Oh,
Hang on a second.
Bar.
Hi, good to
That's
good to see you.
No,
Yeah, hi.
No, just.
All right, and then online,
We have Madeline Blake.
who's the co-chair?
We have MAPC here.
And that's,
um,
hold on a minute, so that's
Alex
Alex Koppelman, right,
Yes.
Alex? Welcome, thank you
And
for
Mark-
being here.
And Mark Rassapot.
And Mark is also from MAPC.
Yes, from MAPC.
Hello, Mark.
We have, the Housing Trust is also having a meeting, has a posted meeting. at
Okay,
this
so hang
time.
on one sec. Let's just do the planning
Okay, so
board for the moment.
planning-
Do you have a quorum there, Madeline? Did you want to formally open your meeting?
I couldn't quite hear you. I'm trying to see who's in the room. I think I heard Addie and Court are in person and Sarah and I are online, so we would have a quorum. Court, since you're there
Yes.
in person, do you want to go ahead and open us up? Court is my co-chair this year.
You
Excellent.
get a microphone. there.
Court, you should come up then and be able to, yeah, just because the mic allows it to be part of the recording for the meeting. Yeah, thank you, Court.
So I'm gonna need to.
Okay, thanks for putting me on the spot here, Madeline. I appreciate it. Anyway, I would like to hereby open this meeting of the planning board as a co-meeting with the select board.
And is there a second?
Second.
So Addie Grady
Okay.
is the seconded.
And going around the table, all in favor, we can go ahead. Madeline,
Blake, I.
Adam's eye.
Herschelman, I.
Grady, I. Smith, I.
Hawk's eye. Oh, actually, Gina, you're not on the planning board, so this is for the planning board.
Sorry.
All right. Okay, and so I'll hereby declare this meeting of the planning board is now in session.
Great, thank you, welcome. And Kate,
I'm
let's
going
do
to
the housing
open
trust.
the Carlisle Affordable Trust meeting. We have here Gina Fox. Let me see, who else do I have here? Mark Levitan, Christine Johnson, Beverly Shorey, and Brian Watterson.
So do you want to put a motion on or have a motion? from
I'm
somebody?
opening the Carlisle Affordable House. Yeah, do we have a motion to, well, I'm just gonna opening it. I'm just opening it and I've already told you who's on. And I see, by the way, Peter Yells, did you get him on in your roll call?
I don't think we heard from Peter, but.
He's here, I see him on the,
Okay, great, thanks.
okay.
And Eric's here too.
All right, well, welcome everybody from the planning board and from the housing trust. This is a really exciting and powerful group we have here. So Kate, I'm going to turn it over to you to.
Thank
sort of,
you.
Take us
Yes.
through this with
So, and
MAPC.
as I said, we have two members from the MAPC and we also have the HPP Advisory Committee here, and that was Addie. It's too bad. Joan was here. I was hoping she would stay. So just Addie, I think you're the only one that was on the advisory.
I'm here, Kate. It's Maureen.
Oh, sorry, Maureen, Maureen, Deary. Okay, so, but before I introduce the housing plan per se, I'd like to review a little bit of its background. First, it is an outgrowth of the Carlisle Master Plan. And I don't want to misrepresent the master plan because of all the goals of the master plan. The goal of increasing housing options received probably the least support, but it did receive 52% of support. So not insignificant, but just not the most. However, that's still a large percentage of people. And I will tell you that housing, specifically housing choice, I think is going to be key to Carlisle's future health and its vibrancy. So the first master plan recommendation around housing was to develop and implement a strategic plan for the Affordable Housing Trust, can't talk with this on, that includes implementing a public education program about fair housing and affordable housing and consistently maintaining an up-to-date housing production plan. Check. This plan does exactly that. The second was to explore strategies to promote housing diversity and allow development of missing middle housing in specified areas. And I think this plan does that as well. The third was to consider other opportunities to produce housing as outlined in the HPP. And that's going to be everybody's job. It's going to be select boards to adopt and support the plan, and the planning boards to consider and offer zoning modifications, and the towns to ratify any bylaw changes that come out of that. The fourth was to reorganize staff to support housing-related initiatives. It should be pointed out that normally the work of an HPP is done with a staff planner. And the HPP that we're about to present is an incredible body of work. And I'd really like to give kudos to the advisory committee for getting it done without any town staff support being available. The fifth recommendation in the master plan was to annually designate Community Preservation Act funds for use by the Affordable Housing Trust, which is not, I don't think, strictly related to the HPP. So I'm not going to tie the HPP to that. So Carlisle contracted with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, what we familiarly call the MAPC, to provide technical assistance to develop a housing production plan that was funded by the Carlisle Affordable Housing Trust and a state grant. It was a year-long planning process guided by a 9-member advisory committee, and they represented a number of town boards and committees in town, including we had representatives from the planning board, Addie over there, Select Board, Barney, you were Select Board liaison for that. COA, that was Joan. School Committee. Public input was gathered through public forums, focus groups, interviews, and committee meetings. And I'd like to just set a couple of ground rules for this presentation. So we have a lengthy report and fairly lengthy. So if you could hold your questions to the end of Alex's presentation, I'd really appreciate it. I'd like to keep our discussion tonight and our focus on the big picture and the high level of policy. And this is not to say that we won't address specific comments on data and technical zoning issues, but I don't think we'll have the time tonight. And many of those issues would be more appropriately addressed, I think, during the implementation of the plan. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Alex Kopelman, the Senior Regional Land Use and Housing Planner, who helped shepherd this report, and Mark Rassecourt, the Director of Land Use Department at MAPC.
Thank you, Kate.
Can you let Alex share his screen, or are you going to run through his?
I think I've got it up now.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Can everybody see that?
If we
Not
all
yet.
have
There
it,
we go.
maybe- Should we
Turn it,
turn it
yeah,
around?
turn it.
Yeah. Thanks, Addie. Sure. Yeah.
We're getting there. That was another part of the master plan. We're not.
Okay, all right.
All right, thank you, Kate, and all the board members who are with us tonight. I think it's an incredible opportunity to have members of the Select Board, members of the Planning Board, members of the Carlisle Affordable Housing Trust, and the Housing Production Plan Committee all in the same room to have this discussion about expanding housing choice and opportunities for the Carlisle community. And I'm going to give a presentation of the plan that was worked on through the Housing Production Plan Committee, and it is going to be dense with a lot of information. I expect you to have lots of questions, and I'm going to do my best to summarize the plan findings and recommendations so we can have a good discussion, but I hope that you can hold your questions for the end. So for those who aren't familiar, the Metropolitan Area Planning Council is the regional planning agency for Greater Boston. So we provide technical assistance for planning and land use for 101 cities and towns in the region. And you can see that Carlisle is part of the Minuteman Advisory Group Interlocal Coordination Subregion, which is a group of communities that meet regularly and work towards regional collaboration. So the Carlisle Affordable Housing Trust asked us to assist them with the development of a housing production plan as a result of a recommendation in Carlisle's master plan. And as you can see here on this map, MAPC has worked with many communities throughout the region in producing their housing production plans. Here are some of those recommendations from the master plan that correspond to the HPP that Kate mentioned earlier. Since she's already listed them, I won't list them again. I first just want to say that having the opportunity to work as a consultant for the town on this really allowed me to appreciate the unique and characteristics of Carlisle. It is really a beautiful community that has many wonderful green open spaces and views. And the residents that we talked to throughout this planning process clearly value the small town feel of Carlisle, the recreational opportunities. So I just want to say that I really appreciate that. And I did get an opportunity to visit Carlisle a few times, and it is truly a wonderful town. These green assets also make it really difficult to think about how to expand housing choice in Carlisle. As it's noted in the master plan, roughly 35% of the town is protected open space. Wetlands impact many properties throughout town. And it's also a town that does not have any wastewater or sewer infrastructure, as I'm sure you're all aware. And these things, are very challenging constraints that we analyzed and considered closely throughout the planning process and tried to gear our recommendations to find pathways, despite these challenges and working through them, to find pathways to expand housing options in town. So as Kate mentioned, this planning process was stewarded by Housing Production Plan Advisory Committee that represents several sectors of the town, including a representative from the planning board, which is Adelaide Grady, and a representative from the Carlisle Select Board, which is Barney Arnold, representatives from the Carlisle Affordable Housing Trust, the Council on Aging, Joan, who gave a great presentation earlier that I think pertains to a lot of housing needs, especially for seniors, and other areas of town. This committee met 5 times over the course of about a year, and they were also instrumental in gathering public input from the community by promoting 2 public forums that were townwide forums advertised in the Carlisle Mosquito, and also helping to arrange a focus group to really ground truth some of the things that we were looking at in our data analysis to really see how housing challenges and issues affect the Carlisle community. And we also had an interview with the Carlisle Board of Health to inform our development constraints analysis. So before we get into the plan, I think it is beneficial to just discuss a couple housing terms and concepts so that we have a shared understanding and vocabulary as we work through this. As a housing planner, one of the things I'm asked all the time is what is affordable housing? And what I say is that when a house and housing costs in general, including your utilities, when that costs more than 30% of your income, that would make it difficult for you to pay for other necessities like food, healthcare, transportation. You have less money to contribute into the local economy as well, because your finances are so leveraged by housing costs. And that's considered cost burden, which is actually a metric that the Census Bureau and HUD use to collect data to understand how many people are struggling with housing costs. If you're spending more than half of your income on housing, that's considered extremely cost burden. And so the US Census Bureau and HUD collect that data on who's cost burdened and extremely cost burdened. When we're talking about affordable housing, it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I think it's helpful to think about it in terms of lowercase a affordable housing and uppercase a affordable housing. Lowercase a is housing that tends to be costing no more than 30% of your income in the marketplace. And those are usually homes that are smaller, or when you have a greater variety of homes, there's a greater chance that you'll find these kind of naturally occurring affordable opportunities. For instance, it's going to be more attainable to purchase a condo than a large single family home, because a condo is generally going to cost less than a large single family home. But there's no protections on this housing. It can change with the market. And because Greater Boston is such an expensive area, it's really important to also be thinking about uppercase affordable housing as well. So this is housing that's required to cost no more than 30% of your income from a deed restriction. It is built by nonprofit and for-profit developers through a variety of financial and regulatory means. So we can think about lowercase a or lowercase attainable housing, and then we can think about the uppercase a affordable housing. Uppercase A affordable housing is for income eligible households only. Eligible households are determined based on area median income. The area median income for Greater Boston in 2021 is $120,800. If a household is earning 80% of that, they're eligible for affordable housing. This figure varies by household size, depending on whether you're an individual household, 2, 3, or 4-person household. But generally speaking, say an individual household would be eligible for affordable housing if they had an income around $70,000, which is a pretty substantial income. I mean, we could be thinking about a teacher, a nurse, an architect, folks that make a pretty good amount of money, but because housing costs are so high in Greater Boston, a lot of those folks can end up being eligible for affordable housing, which is why a lot of people and communities can be surprised about how many households in town are eligible for affordable housing. So I think that's a helpful grounding point so that we can understand some of the things that we're looking at throughout this report. And so with that, I'm going to get into some key takeaways from the housing needs assessment. This is a comprehensive housing needs assessment that included lots of different sources of data. I cannot possibly go through it all with you tonight, so I'm going to do my best to highlight some of the big takeaways. But I do want to make note that when you're working in a small community like Carlisle, where the population size is lower, and you're working with American Community Survey data, which is really the best data to describe a variety of different things going on in the community, it is based on sample size. It is an estimate, and there is a margin of error, and margin of error increases when you have smaller sample sizes. So this was a limitation of the data, which I think you would encounter in any planning process in Carlisle, including the master plan process. But to try and increase confidence in the findings, we use data aggregation, and that helped us confirm some of the trends. And this is the best information that we have to describe what's going on in the community. So key finding one is looking at the average household size in Carlisle. One of the parts of the analysis was to establish context communities based on communities that had similar characteristics and demographics and housing that we could use as a reference point to see what's significant in Carlisle. And so you can see on the chart on the left that Carlisle has the smallest household size of all the context communities at about 2.7. The average household size is about close to 3 people. But 94% of homes in Carlisle have 3 or more bedrooms. So you see a little bit of a mismatch here in terms of size of households in town and the size of housing units in town. So this is a quote from a focus group that I think speaks to a small family having trouble finding a smaller home because there's just not a lot of that in town. So the next key finding is limited housing choice. 92% of homes in Carlisle are detached single-family homes. The 2022 median price of a single family in Carlisle was $1.3 million. We know when the pandemic happened and interest rates were really low that there was a huge increase in housing prices. But even if you look at 2019 data, you can see that Carlisle had the most expensive median single family home price of all context communities. So why do we want to think about that? Why is that a concern? Well, if you think about some of the different needs in town and people who want to have different choices, there's not as many because 92% of the homes are single family, and the median price of a single family home is $1.3 million. So if you're a senior and your kids have grown up and you're an empty nester now, maybe you've retired or transitioned to a fixed income, and you may be looking for a smaller housing type that's more manageable, but you can still stay in the community, live with autonomy, and you want to downsize. Well, 92% of homes in town are detached single family houses. This is also an issue when you're thinking about, let's say you're a kid who grew up in Carlisle, you've fallen in love with your community, you want to buy your first home in town. 92% of the homes are detached single family houses. You would need $260,000 in savings for a 20% down payment. 20% is required to not have to pay for private mortgage insurance, which is additional monthly expense. So again, when you consider that 92% of homes in town are like this, there is just a limited range of housing choices, and that that down payment is required to access the vast majority of the housing stock. So it's a really big barrier to entry for a lot of people. This is a focus group quote from a senior who talks about they don't feel that they could find a downsizing option in town and may need to look elsewhere or modify their existing home so that it can meet their needs as they age. The third key finding concerns uppercase A affordable housing. Remember that housing that's for income eligible households, it's required to cost no more than 30% of your income. There are approximately 360 income eligible households in Carlisle. There are only 59 affordable housing units on the town's SHI. The state law is really asking communities across Massachusetts to be at a 10% SHI. Carlisle is at 3.4. There are a lot of reasons for that. A lot of the development constraints that we've been talking about go into that. But I think what is most important is to not think about the SHI or 40B, but to think about where is the need. And clearly there are a lot of households in town that are eligible for affordable housing, and there is not a large supply of it. So here is one last focus group quote talking about how that affects community members. So development constraints and opportunities, understanding that there is housing need in Carlisle, we still know it's really challenging to create more housing choices because of all of the constraints on development. So through this planning process, we did a robust analysis of development constraints, looking at environmental constraints spatially, as you can get a sense of on this map. Looking at the town's zoning regulations, having a discussion with the Board of Health about wastewater and sewer infrastructure constraints. We gathered several case studies with communities that also have limited water and wastewater infrastructure to see how they worked through those challenges. And we also evaluated the town's existing toolkit and capacity. So from that constraints analysis and the input that we've been gathering through the plan, we did a very high level opportunity analysis. This is not specific to any properties. It simply categorizes different types of parcels based on characteristics like their size, occupancy, and ownership and location. And so, for example, one of the opportunity types, site type 2, would be large vacant sites located outside the town center. This is a categorization. We're not talking about specific properties. At the second public forum, we had discussions and polled participants to see what types of homes that they would favor on this opportunity type. Participants really showed support for a range of different housing options. And for site type 2, cluster cottage housing was very popular. So using this analysis, the committee, with its local knowledge and understanding of different development possibilities, listed 4 specific sites, which is a requirement of a housing production plan to be certified by the state. These sites are identified in the plan, but whatever happens there is completely up to the private property owner. They are all site type 2, which again are those large sites outside the town center. They are all 17 acres or more. Some of them are larger, which also I think offers some more flexibility considering the development constraints concerning water and wastewater infrastructure. All right, so moving into goals and strategies. The HPP committee established 5 broad goals for the housing production plan. The first, the really need to create community awareness of housing needs and how it affects Carlisle's community, because a lot of the action that needs to be taken requires better awareness of this. To produce that capital A affordable housing, as well as creating a variety of housing options, that lowercase a or attainable housing. Number 4, to affirmatively further fair housing, to create housing opportunities for all protected classes. And then 5, to expand and leverage infrastructure for smart growth, recognizing that that's going to be needed to expand housing options in town. So from those goals, we proposed different strategies that would work towards those goals, really carefully considering the many development constraints and the recommendations of the Carlisle master plan. The first strategy that would be more suited for the town to pursue is to adopt a new cluster cottage housing zoning bylaw. And again, as I mentioned, this was one of the most popular housing types from the polling we did at the forum. And this would be something where, as the town explores implementation, it could decide where this would make sense. So rather than making an across the board change to zoning, like changing the 2-acre minimum requirement, this would be a targeted approach consistent with the Carlisle master plan to identify specific areas to create more housing options. And this is actually something that we proposed after conversations with the planning board, which revealed that this would be a more effective bylaw to go work towards, rather than looking at making more flexibility, creating more flexibility in the accessory dwelling unit bylaw, which was originally proposed. The second is to build on the progress of the new ROSC and SROSC permitting processes by working with a consultant to create affordability requirements that would require a portion of housing units coming through those processes to be affordable, and carefully balancing those requirements with financial feasibility. So we believe it is necessary to work with a consultant because a pro forma analysis would need to be done to really make sure that these requirements are set thoughtfully and appropriately. The third is to look at a vision for the town center, which would be driven by public engagement, asking residents what they would like to see there, as this may be an opportunity to look at creating mixed use housing combined with some smaller commercial uses to possibly create a gathering place in and this corresponds to a master plan recommendation to have a mixed use commercial zoning study to look at opportunities that may exist, and it identifies the town center as one of those areas that may be looked at. But ultimately, whatever would happen there, I think needs to be driven by the public's vision and further engagement. So that is the recommendation. The fourth one is to make a plan to look at complying with the new state law, Chapter 3A. This is a new state law that is requiring all cities and towns served by public transit or adjacent to public transit to have a zoning district that allows multifamily. It must be by right, but the town can, sorry about that. It must be all right by right, but the town can set its own standards for how that would be regulated. Initially, when this law was drafted, the state was requiring a community like Carlisle to zone for 750 multifamily units, and the HPP committee, as well as planners working on this, felt like that was not going to be possible for Carlisle. But then the state created new guidelines that classified communities differently, and Carlisle was classified as a small town adjacent community, and the requirement was reduced to 95 units, and Carlisle would not have to locate that zone in a specific location, but could choose where it would go. And so when we're talking about planning to comply with 3A, we're talking about another planning process to see where that 3A zone may go. Maybe it's more than one zone. And to get public input on that and to engage all the entities in town that need to be involved in that process. Currently, Carlisle could submit a simple form to the state indicating that they are looking at planning to comply, and that would give the town 1 year of compliance without binding the town to doing anything to actually, they could actually look at implementation later and end up not adopting a 3A zone. But by submitting a plan to do that, which could reference this housing production plan, Carlisle would already have a year of compliance. Compliance is really hard, is really important. Sorry, I have a little animation problem with my slides. But Carlisle, this is really important because one of the recommendations is to prepare a MassWorks application, which is a state funding program that provides funding for water and sewer upgrades. You have to comply with 3A to be eligible for that program. So that is one of the reasons why the committee ultimately included this as a recommendation. So the other strategies that are more under the purview of the Carlisle Affordable Housing Trust, there are 6 of them. The first is to utilize the LIP comprehensive permitting process and other state tools to facilitate mixed income and affordable housing development in opportunity areas. And this is really necessary because under current zoning conditions, there's not really an ability to permit a variety of housing types. So The second recommendation is for the trust to form partnerships with developers and meet with developers on a regular basis to proactively plan and identify development opportunities that the town could support. Again, these are being thought about because we recognized how much development constraints and challenges there are in town. But to actually be able to work with developers to do that, the town would need to use the comprehensive permitting process. So those recommendations are really tied together as well. The third recommendation is related, I believe. This one is to establish a joint commission that would involve the Carlisle Conservation Commission, the Conservation Preservation Committee, excuse me, as well as other entities, the Select Board, the Planning Board, so that all of the boards could think together when the town is considering acquiring sites and to take ownership of those sites, so that there can be a conversation about whether it's possible to have some housing and shared open space on sites rather than it just being acquired for housing or acquired just to be preserved. This is basically to have more coordination to think about those things in advance, which is also correlating to a Carlisle master plan recommendation. The fourth strategy is then to work with those development partners from strategy 2 to in advance identify a development opportunity where the town in partnership with a developer could submit for a MassWorks funding application, which could provide infrastructure that would be necessary to have a development in Carlisle, considering those severe constraints with no townwide wastewater sewer infrastructure. This could be done in coordination with looking at public land or possibly an easement or possibly connecting into an existing wastewater treatment facility. But in any case, a MassWorks application really needs to be done in advance. And so that's why it's necessary to have those partnerships with developers and to really proactively identify development opportunities and have a process for permitting that development that the town would have control over, which would be that LIP process. One more point about the LIP process is that if you use it, you get state technical assistance, which can really help with a lot of the complexities to development in Carlisle. So the last two, the strategy 5 is to join a shared housing service office. And this is something that the trust has already been exploring and working a little bit with a housing service consultant. But essentially, this is a really cost-effective way to increase capacity, which I believe is really important for implementing these recommendations. You're able to basically utilize a shared planner, and they'd be shared by multiple communities. Based on demand and how it changes each year, which would allow the town to monitor affordable housing units to make sure they don't expire. And if more affordable housing units come online, this staff person could handle the administrative needs that come with that. And they can also increase capacity for planning and implementation. The final recommendation is really building off of something that the trust has also been dabbling in, and that is to offer housing assistance programs specifically to have a first-time home buying program. I mean, we remember, how hard it can be for someone to buy a home in Carlisle. And so it may be about more than just creating more housing options, but also offering some assistance and leveraging state funding that does already exist for that, as well as offering assistance for seniors who may have trouble affording their home or may need to make modifications to their home so that they can age in place. So I'm almost done, I promise. I just want to end with a couple benefits to go back to what Kate was talking about in terms of considering this plan. I mean, first and foremost, this plan is a roadmap for the community to look at meeting housing need. It is a way to proactively plan for development rather than having unplanned 40Bs that put pressure on the ZBA, but to actually identify what the town wants, use the permitting process with the town in the driver's seat. This plan can also help Carlisle comply with 40B so that there aren't proposed unplanned 40Bs where you could basically say no because you have safe harbor from 40B, and you don't have to get 10% on the SHI to do that. If you adopt the plan, you could have a 2-year safe harbor period if you added 17 units to the SHI. If you added just 9 units to the SHI in 1 calendar year, you would have 1 year of safe harbor. So there is a way to get safe harbor without going all the way to the 10%. And then finally, if these recommendations are implemented, this can really help protect Carlisle's access to state funding, like things like MassWorks and other discretionary funds that are really critical for Carlisle, considering that it needs water and wastewater infrastructure. And, you know, this is something that I think can really help Carlisle access state funding. And with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation and open it up for questions and discussion.
There's a lot.
Thank you, Alex.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot here, but it's great. And I know the full HPP report has even more in it. Kate, do you want to sort of share questions and comments?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. Let me, you want to stop sharing maybe so I can see the, thanks. So if people that are online want to raise their hands, I'd be happy to recognize you and people obviously in the room.
If they're on one of the boards.
If they're on one of the boards, yes. Well, why don't we start
Can I
with the
go?
select board?
I mean, so there's so much and it's gonna take a while to sift through. But maybe I'll ask you, Kate, because you're the closest to it. What do you feel the objective? What's a reasonable? We understand, I mean, very thorough job of explaining why it's so difficult. So we got that. And that there's few properties. And then there's a lot here that's new to me about ways we can, you know, address that. But I always like to start, like, what is the objective? What do we think is the objective? What should be our objective? Like a house a year, like we talked about years ago, or
Yeah, I
a
think we're.
cluster? I mean, what is it? What
There's
should
no
we be
way- let me
striving
put it
to?
to you this way, there's no way Carlisle is going to do 9 houses in a year or 17 in 2 years. I don't see that happening. Okay. So that is not the objective. But it's not the immediate objective, but you never know. 40B could come in and give you those. You know, so part of the reason that we do this is to also protect ourselves from that, because, you know, you get, because you planned, you know what you want and you know where you want to put it. You can bend yourself, you know, defend yourself better. I think that objective is almost not even, you know, I've heard now, somebody told me, well, you know, the new term is not affordable housing. You know, we talked about big A and little a, okay? I would say that Carlisle is more interested in with the little a housing, but we don't even have that. And another term for little a housing is attainable. We don't have housing that's attainable for most people. You know, you have to better be double income family, or, you know, and both pulling in, you know, $1.25, right? $100,000 to be able to afford anything. And that's not attainable for most people. So I think I think the master plan was asking for that missing middle, that attainability. And you have to plan for that. It's not going to happen by itself.
Right, but that's back to the question. What do you think is reasonable for Carlisle? There's still a lot of people that are missing. They're like, what scale are you talking about? Like, again, 1 house a year?
I would say 1 house, let's take Woodward Village for a good example, I think. First of all, they're having a real tough problem with their wastewater treatment. And I think there's sewage in Bedford, just across, you know, the way from them. So with the MassWorks grant, they could have maybe even applied for MassWorks. But regardless, there's 36 acres of open space that they protected there with their cluster, which is great. But 35, if they had saved 35 acres, it would have been just as great. And 1 acre could have been then donated to the trust to then either partner with the developer or partner with somebody else to put an appropriate house or 2 units on that land, because that's what we need. And that would not have cost anybody anything in town. But we would have gotten 1 or 2 units of affordable of some sort of definition housing out of that. So I'm trying to get people to think of open space and housing. It's not open space or housing. It's both. You can have both, especially if you cluster the housing. And yeah, I don't know what else.
So that addresses the land piece, right? Can you just walk us briefly through how the like Habitat or some other partnership that would actually build the house and then, you know, make it available to them?
What, I'm sorry,
Well, so that's a very good comment you made, that
Okay.
we could balance our open space with
Yeah.
some for house. So that would take care of obtaining land,
right.
but then the building of it.
Well, then we have to work with the builder and we have to put an RFP and, you know, and we get and that way, in fact, then we can also control what is it going to look like, where is it going to be sited and all this other stuff, because it's our land and we're donating it and we're, you know, that's what allows them then to build something affordable. And it could even be, as I said, it could even be the same developer who was building anyway.
Yeah, I think it'd be weird to have 2 different ones, right? So I think,
Well, you know,
so are you
trying to make it
suggesting
as-
like for the Woodward thing, you know, because we did talk to them, you know, well, what if some of those were affordable and, you know, how much money could we give? And it was way too much money.
That's
So you're
because,
saying if it was, you know, they get their number of lots, but then we say, okay, so here's another buildable lot or 2. You can do this project if you provide housing on those properties, or are we coming in and saying, okay, here's the property, somebody else builds? Because that would I would think it would want to be done as part of the development of the overall cluster.
that would be the nicest, but you know, there have been clusters that have been done. Depending on the style of the cluster, you know, and then they put a couple of prefab houses in the neighborhood. And the prefab houses are really much less expensive. And they look just like any other house in the neighborhood, but they've been prefab. So the finishes on the inside aren't the same and this, that, and the other, but if you're driving through the neighborhood, you cannot tell the affordable houses. Can't pick them out.
And so is that, are you suggesting that like the cluster option here is really a modification of what was developed a few years ago for the you know, for Woodward property?
Right, yeah. I mean, basically, in fact, what was it called? The recommendation is to build on what we already have, which is the SROSC and the ROSC, to kind of think a little differently about it.
That makes sense to me.
Madam Chair, Mark Leviton is virtual hand raised. You want to recognize him?
Hey, Mark. You want to?
That is me. Hi, Mark Levitan, Affordable Housing Trust. This, you know, is a roadmap for sure. There's, you know, a lot of data, there's a lot of information. You have to keep circling back to where are we and what do we have as tools for us to break the impasse of not being able to have any quote unquote attainable housing, which I do believe is a better word, in the middle, but also the fact that the economics, such as they are in terms of area median income and working folks, mean that we really, you know, have to take into account and build some capacity. We have to do it, whether it's a house a year, which is really, you know, to my mind, is a little bit modest, or just a few. But even if we were to look at zoning options to allow a small home cluster around a common with some buffered conservation land around it, that the town decides where we can do that. And, that is, opening the gates to our not technically gated, but just about gated community here. We, have to be alert to who lives here now and their contributions to the community, and who could possibly live here and their contributions to the community in terms of different kinds of diversity, economic and other. So, this is just a package of tools, but we have to have a sort of mindset that we want to try to implement some of them and not keep finding reasons that we can't or we shouldn't, or it might damage, what we all consider the beauty and the character of the town. It's really unlikely anybody would let that happen. And it's not restricting us from making progress, though. And again, so this is a package of tools. Let's look at it as that. Let's realize that anything that could possibly come out of using these tools would require a very extensive amount of conversation, study, economic planning, and land use planning before anything could happen. But we really have to get off the dime. You can tell what's going on already just by the unfortunate coincidence of the property tax situation that's making our town less affordable, although the values have increased, and that's all well and good, but that is really hurting a lot of people. And we don't have any solutions. So I'm going to finish up, but it's a detriment to our community, which is a social compact more than it is, driven by market forces. And that is how our whole government and communities are organized. It's the social compact, what makes up a community and what contributes to its health.
So I think a great place of starting was, I think when we did the SROSC and the ROSC, we had hoped that this was going to help address that problem in some way. But they're massively expensive properties. And I think looking back at those is a good starting point as to, okay, what went wrong? Why was it not affordable for anybody to put alternative housing in there, and like talk to those developers and figure out what we can change in that in order to make it happen.
Addie, you want to wait? No, you have to come over here, or maybe trade spots.
Nathan, if I might, I don't want to relitigate that whole thing, but you build it into the bylaw that it has to, it's a trade-off. There's a density bonus for conservation, and there can be similarly one for housing. And, the whole element of inclusionary zoning, which, we have decided on many occasions not to try to either raise, a housing unit or two in a development of multiple homes, or get some cash for the pleasure of not building those, because a lot of these things we're talking about are going to take money, even, home buyer assistance, rental assistance, all these things. Anyway, build it into the bylaw.
Let Addie have it.
I don't intend to speak at length. Adelaide Grady, I'm on the planning board, and I was on the
Advisory committee.
Thank you. I would suggest in response to why hasn't alternative housing taken hold where it can, based on the existing zoning that we have or bylaws that we have, has almost more to do with the era of low interest rates than anything else. If it's easy to sell a really expensive home and just build one of them, and I'm speaking from the perspective of I'm a housing developer, you will build this easy single family home and sell it. But as interest rates go up, people have less and less ability to pay $3 million for a new construction home. And if developers are good at anything, it's adapting. And they will find a way to make money given constraints. And high interest rates are a constraint. That's all.
And it doesn't look like, at least in the near term, that's gonna, we're going in the direction of lowering them for a while.
It will, I would suggest that it's not going to go down as far as it was for a generation.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Addie, doesn't it make the attainability? I mean, it makes it harder for developers to sell, et cetera, but it also raises the level at which a house, it's raising all the real estate values, right? So
No, it
Is-
lowers the real
No,
estate
well, it's
values.
Higher interest rates and then go down, housing prices go down.
Prices go down.
Hey, Maddie,
okay, fair enough. I'll leave
I'm
it at
on
that.
mute. What are you doing? You hungry?
I'm sorry, who is it that's speaking?
I got it. I got it. I handled it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? We're close to we really are out of time, but I know we haven't had a lot of chance for other comments. Anybody else from the planning board? Yeah, she on. I can't. Madeline, did you want to make a
Yeah, I
comment?
just want to really quickly take this opportunity to introduce our new planner, Julie Mercier. Julie, I can't see if you're in the room there, but I assume that you are. I think a lot of you have had a chance to meet Julie. She started about a month ago, but she has extensive experience working with housing. And I believe an interest in being involved in the area too. So I hope everyone gives her a welcome and that she can become involved in this area and help us.
Here, here. Yeah.
This is Eric Adams. One additional thought that I have, or it's kind of as a builder myself as well, as we start as a society, but also as a municipality, our state of Massachusetts and municipality of Carlisle, start thinking about and talking seriously about the evolution of the building code and housing performance requirements that are going to be changing dramatically over the next decade. I think that there's something for us to consider in the context of this topic is the cost to construct housing in that manner. Is it going to be more expensive, at least in the short term, as these new building requirements are mandated on developers and builders? But I also think there's an opportunity for us to, if kind of thoughtfully incorporating this new technology and these new requirements in such a way that I could see cluster housing that has other performance-based criteria being kind of incentivizing builders with perhaps greater density or some other factor whereby we can incent the development of greater density of housing that meets higher performance standards. And therefore, I don't see, I tell clients this, the most influential factor in the cost of a housing unit is the number of square feet that are constructed. And I don't see that changing. So I think that if we have performance-based criteria, density considerations, and making the more of an incentive for smaller homes, as was demonstrated in the presentation, I think that might be something. Those things kind of, I think, are kind of elegantly connected, and something that we as a town and as people who are charged with this mandate to think about should incorporate those things into this, how we're thinking about the options moving forward.
Eric, could you clarify what you mean by performance standards or give an example?
So thermal performance of the shell of the building itself, and basically energy efficiency. So decreasing the number of units of energy required to heat and cool the house, as well as potentially generating electricity through the use of photovoltaics, and storage of electricity through batteries. Still probably having a grid connection, but thinking about energy consumption in a different way and really getting away from fossil fuels. I think there's also going to be growing incentives from the state and federal government to subsidize those technologies, and then there's other things as well, you know, water consumption efficiency and other things like that. But I'm talking primarily about the basically the amount of energy that it takes to heat and cool a structure, and the amount of energy that those structures could potentially generate on site, whether it be, you know, on the structure itself, or if we're talking about a cluster development, for example. Someone mentioned, you know, allocating one of those 35 acres to, or, you know, multiple lots for development of those types of housing. I think we should also start thinking about allocation of common areas for ground-based solar arrays that could be much larger than what you might be able to put on just a single roof, especially. There's an inverse relationship, obviously, between the size of the house you're building, the amount of power you can generate from a roof-based photovoltaic array. So, just again, things that are creeping into my business, and I think worthy of thinking about, as we really need. I think our mandate in these bodies is to think, you know, 10, 20, 30 years ahead, and that's all really on our doorstep at this point.
So how does this, I know we need to end, and
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be paying attention to that too, but I just have to ask, how do you see this moving forward?
Well, the report needs to be adopted by both the select board and the planning board. That's the first step. And then we start talking about these ideas that Eric brought up, and we get to work. But it would be really nice to get this out of the way first. And then, develop those ideas. There's no prescription in this report about which idea needs to be worked on first or whatever. It just says planning board, housing authority, or housing trust, conservation commission should get to work and talk about what the possibilities are. And here are some of the, ways to, here's how to start.
So the ask of the select board is to adopt this plan.
And of the planning board, it has to be adopted by both the planning and the
I'm
select
just gonna
board.
say, or make some changes, request or recommend some changes, or is this?
You could actually, vote to adopt it contingent on making the following changes, or.
And is the process, the planning board does the same thing, so does it make sense to do them sort of one after the other? So that the second group of voting on it can be informed by the first group?
I mean, everybody's here. Would be lovely to just do it.
I didn't realize that in this meeting, we were gonna be asked to
Vote on
to
something.
vote on it. So I mean, I
Yeah.
read through it, and then the presentation was awesome. And it's made me think more about some of the things in here. And I'd love to be able to go back and read those sections again
Right.
personally. Because
Okay.
it's a lot to.
No, I'm with you on that. That was my understanding about tonight. It was a presentation.
Well, that's
first
fine,
discussion.
but then we do
Yeah.
need to make
Right, have it on.
progress.
Yeah.
On that note, I mean, should deliberation be among those boards together, or is it seriously?
I think what could happen is people could send in their notes and concerns or questions, or we could have another meeting, or they could be met. There's all kinds of ways of, handling
So
that.
That's the, I was just gonna ask, what's the feeling of the planning board about this, where you have sort of more, at least from my vantage point, you have more specific you know,
Um,
responsibilities,
well, I
areas
think-
that you have much more involvement in at actually monitoring or managing or changing.
Well, I think I personally am kind of in the same place where we had the benefit of this great presentation. There's a lot of data and a lot of information here. I'd like to go back and reread the report, digest it a little bit further. And I think that the planning board does need to go back and discuss it as a board. As pointed out, Julie is now with us, who has experience in this area, who could also bring that experience and to the board for the benefit of our discussion. And then I think once we've had that and endorsed the plan as a board and had a chance to provide any feedback or comments or recommendations for updates, that would be the time to come back and ask that we adopt the report after we've had
That'd
a
be
chance
fine.
to fully review it. Now, that's my opinion. I haven't had the benefit of I guess we are in session in the meeting here, so I should see if there's a movement to review the plan in a board meeting and then come back at a later time with our recommendations to adopt or not.
Court, I agree with that. I was putting up my hand to ask that we not vote tonight and that we have some more time with this report. And I know you guys had some public forums and it sounds like there was a great amount of outreach during the process, but I think we would really all benefit if you could post this on a web page somewhere and make it available to the public so that, excuse me, we have the benefit of any public comments on it as well.
That can be arranged.
So comment, if I can make a comment, I certainly have the plan is very thorough and I can't argue with the conclusion. But it strikes me a little bit like the master plan. So if I go to action steps, there's like 50 things. I mean, they're grouped and it's organized, but there's a lot of things. And we've been sort of wrestling with that. Julie's been pretty active in that lately, is trying to organize those many recommendations, all of which have merit, into some sort of structure that makes it actionable. So I'm not here, obviously we don't have time tonight, but I think my guidance or my suggestion to all the boards is, and I don't know how to do it, maybe Julie can help us, but we really need, assuming we pass it in whatever modifications we make, the next step is, what do you implement? What's implementable and in what sort of sequence? And we as a select board took on adopting essentially the framework of the master plan in our own goal set. So we used it extensively in setting our goals, and we have to kind of do the same thing here. We have to figure out which of these things really are going to be action steps.
Every one thing of those things is an action step under the master plan.
No, I
think
know.
we've already
I'm
tied
saying,
that.
Kate, there's lots of them.
Okay.
We gotta-
Prioritize and spread it out over timeline. Yeah, Addie. Yeah, thank you.
Just to be devil's advocate. I wonder what will change about the plan based on the feedback and the more extensive review versus how feedback and more extensive review will inform implementation.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I am concerned that taking time for everybody to review and everybody to comment. I understand this is a public process and we're a volunteer body. But I'm just concerned that we'll lose momentum. The flip side is if we have the time and we set a deadline and that instigates people actually reading it and actually digesting it, then there's a benefit to that too.
Yeah, I have to say, everybody's had this report since November 30th. I'm just
sorry,
saying.
say- Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah, it was sent to everybody on November 30th.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, so I think the board has an advisory committee, the Affordable Housing Trust, and I think just in my outside analysis, what they're lacking is the direction and empowerment to act. So what this plan does is it gives them that. So I think if there was agreement, which would be difficult, between the select board and the planning board on what to advise them to do, then they can go do the work. I think what is really needed is that direction. I think that's doable. with some focused effort. And we can serve, Julie and I as a clearinghouse for ideas to bring back immediate feedback from the group for that decision to try and speed that up if the planning board goes, and then we collect notes, we can gather it together and try and help inform that discussion, and then maybe power the CAHT to do the work.
I'll just say for myself on the select board, I would defer to the planning board on some of the specifics. If there were pieces of this, unless you've already had some conversation with the planning board about the various proposals in here, you know, I personally would be comfortable having the planning board say, well, these, you know, here's our take on some of these specific ideas, and here's what we might recommend. Here's what we recommend as things that are sort of a reasonable set of things to try to achieve over this period of time. I would be comfortable being guided by that along with the overall plan, which I think is excellent. So I don't personally feel the need, because I'm not going to try to make myself an expert on all of the things that are in the planning report, HPP. I mean, that's why we had MAPC do it as an experienced body that does a lot of this. So, but I do respect the expertise on the planning board, and particularly with the town planner. I don't know whether you've, Julie, done your own, you know, review of this and given feedback yet, but that would be, those would be the two groups that I would like to have give us any specific comments on this or recommendations, and then I'd be ready to go.
Yeah, well, the planning board has a lot of work to do because a lot of the action
I
steps
know.
all belong to the planning board, so
Right.
that indeed.
So you're saying that you would like to see the feedback from the planning board and Julie, and then that comes to the select board and we review it, and then that's when we would, if it's doing a sequence thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That
I,
makes some sense.
again, I personally wouldn't anticipate that we as a select board would then have a whole additional set of items that we either wanted to change or add to it, or, right? I mean, but that's my opinion, right? Because I don't think we need to be specialists in housing since we have
Well, I
some of
wasn't
that already.
suggesting that,
Yeah,
but we still have to prioritize.
right. But I'm looking to, yeah, I'd be looking for that
Of
to happen
course. No,
from
I
the
think-
town planner and the
Right, I
planning
think
board.
what Ryan's saying is true, and you know, we are in the process of learning to trust the daytime government more, and
Right.
absolutely, but
Right.
you know, there's a cost component at the end.
Hmm.
And we are, at the end of the day, we have to somehow rank order things we're gonna take. And so however the process works, and I agree with all that, I just want us to be mindful. Some general prioritization is really valuable as a
Right.
framework.
Right.
And it goes back to my very first question, you know, and so rather than belabor it now at 9:30, but clarity about what is a reasonable objective for the town to do would be helpful from any source.
Okay, are any other comments from the select board on this? Or from the planning board or from the housing trust? I think we know how we're moving forward. Do people feel like we're on a path here? Okay,
Thank you.
good. Well,
Next,
thanks to everybody. Yeah, now do you want to, you need to close your meeting officially. And the
And
housing
the
trust
housing,
needs to
housing
close it.
trust meeting is officially closed at 9:30.
Could I have a
Okay.
motion to adjourn the planning board?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. This meeting of the planning board is hereby closed.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks
Okay, thank you.
and again, thank you to MAPC. This is a lot of great work, and it's really going to help us move forward. So thank you all.
Thank you.
And if we have questions, do we submit them to you, Kate, or to like, where's the?
I would say that Ryan and Julie maybe are the
Julie, all right.
clearinghouse, and
Julie's offered to serve as
yes, okay.
Clearinghouse,
Julie and I will
excellent.
be in
Okay, perfect.
close contact.
Excellent. Just
Thank you,
a
Eddie.
minor job here, Julie, that you get to take on. Boom. That's great.
If I might just add a couple thoughts, there is a section of the plan that looks at implementation in terms of priority and timeline.
Okay.
That may be really helpful in terms of prioritizing some things that you may want to explore in the near term, midterm, or long term, and kind of how the recommendations relate to each other, the entities that would need to be involved in implementing. I would say that, typically in a planning process like this, as a consultant, it would be very valuable to work with an experienced town planner like Julie, and that just wasn't possible because she wasn't on board when we were making the plan. And I think it would be great to coordinate with her, but I also want to be mindful of that. The committee that worked through the plan ultimately guided the process, and they should be involved in those discussions as well.
Thank you. All right, well, good night all, and thank you. We're going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is Aubrey, are you online, or are you, Ryan, are you going to be doing this about the preparation for the discussion with Representative Cataldo next meeting?
She is, but if she doesn't pop on, I'm ready.
Okay.
No, I'm here. Sorry.
Hi,
I
Aubrey.
am here. Hello.
Great.
Yeah. So I did assess with current board members, staff members. Let me just pull that up real quick for you. And what they are looking for input from the representative. So I did get some input from the chief, Brian Sorrows, for thanking him for the fire safety grants, and also looking into resiliency with public safety buildings, also supporting the state moving EMS from DPH and EOPS. Also the bridge on 225 over the Concord River is a concern for him. So those are his top concerns. Also, Joan Ingersoll, our COHS director, also brought in some input that she'd like to have the legislator move forward with the attached bill that I have attached after this, piloting a state property tax deferral program. Also, Sue Thomas, the environmental sustainability director, had several different concerns regarding sustainability, as you can see here, and seeing how it can, how he will be addressing a lot of different issues related to that. And then in that vein, also Debbie Bentley, which is just from herself, not representative of the ESC. She also had questions for him about zero carbon renovation fund, and also a bill on embodied carbon in buildings. And then Lana Zamaro had some questions about financial incentives for decarbonization. So there's definitely a big theme with that. And then Ryan, if you wanted to also speak on what you would like to address with them.
Sure. Quickly, I serve on the Small Town Administrators Legislative Affairs Committee. We are meeting with our legislative liaison. So here it would be Simon. So this would be a way to introduce this legislative priority we're trying to push. Carlisle's been added to this mix as an island, small town in the middle of these larger municipalities. And all of these relate directly to Carlisle. So providing funding and assistance to town clerks for elections, more roads money, rural factors will help us with school aid, creating a municipal building assistance authority, which the chief referenced in his as well. And then extending provisions to allow hybrid meetings like these, and then also funding it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think this is a good list. Does anyone here on the select board have something in particular or broadly that they would like to include in what we send to Representative Cataldo's office for him to sort of prepare some remarks?
So I guess I'm not understanding that this is our opportunity to sort of petition the government to talk to the state representative and say, these are the priorities that we see from our town and we'd like you to be aware of. Is that the purpose of this?
It's kind of it's sort of backing up a little bit more towards the beginning. It's basically trying to establish a relationship with him. He's just been elected. He's never served before representing Carlisle, and so
Right.
we want just to have an opportunity to get our voices into the mix of the voices he's hearing from now. And we wanted to have some sense of what were some of the key areas of, that people in town, or particularly board people, were interested in hearing him
BOA,
address.
Not BORED.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I don't see this as a one-shot ability to, influence legislation. It's the beginning. We haven't done so much of this, in an organized way in the past, a little bit. I know we had Tammy Govey come once, but I think this is an effort to get in on the very beginning of his term and to open a dialogue that we're going to hopefully continue, rather than have it be just maybe once every couple of years that you see your state rep.
Yeah, we were very supportive of him early, many of us. And he's from Concord, so, Carlisle is a close community to where he lives. So that's first of all, and he's a young, very energetic, if you've met him, very earnest guy. So part of it is just, he will present, I think, what his vision is, what does he want to accomplish, what does he stand for? And he stands for a lot of the issues that I think are already encapsulated in this, what we said. So we're going to be very similar. So he'll say some things, and I think it's great. The bullet points are pretty good if we can reduce them, and give them to him in advance, so he can also be responsive to what people said. But yeah, absolutely agree with Barney. It's a beginning. We'd like to check in with him regularly. And, the more he understands about Carlisle, the more he will be effective as a representative of our interests. So that's it.
I was just curious how you prioritize. That was your question earlier with the,
Well,
how
I
you
don't think
prioritize.
prioritization is necessary here. I think that in my mind, since I sort of set it up with him,
Yeah.
I think he gets a period, it's 50 minutes, I think we put in there, 50 minutes,
Yeah.
something like that. So we give him 15 or 20 minutes to present his piece. He'll have some package thing he wants to say. We take 10 or 15 minutes to give him or he can respond to specific questions. He'll get them in advance after this meeting. And then we can have a back and forth. It's still, it's a meet and greet.
Yeah, and just knowing him, he's going to be very interested in getting input. He's not going to get up and speak for, 40 minutes. He's going to try to do a brief, address these, here's what I'm, what's on my plate right now and what I'm looking at from what you sent me. I want to address some of the key things you've sent me. And he'll do that and then want to have dialogue back and forth about things we want to talk about.
Right.
Yeah. My one suggestion on this is that, and I'm happy to take a crack at it or maybe work with Aubrey, you on it, or how, is that rather than send him these notes from individuals, we go through and pull out the common themes and put that before him, and then something that's super specific he could address separately, to the,
I think we can.
right? And so,
And
right.
put them in kind of a priority order, so that if he runs out of time, these
Yeah.
are our highest priority ones, and the lower ones we hit it the next time.
That's what I was asking, is how you're gonna have to prioritize somehow
I
of
agree
what
with
you want to tell people and how you want to portray it. So, and I noticed there wasn't anything on like conservation or some of the other, we have 5 key components of
well-
our master plan, and I don't think all of them were represented in
Well,
this.
that's why this is our opportunity as a
Yeah.
board.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't, people could had we all had the option to respond, to Aubrey's request.
Yeah.
So, but
Oh,
this is now
I
our
didn't get it.
chance as a group. Yeah, we all got the notice from her.
Oh, I guess I
But-
didn't.
But
read it
anyway,
carefully then.
that's okay. But that's what, if we take just 3 minutes tonight for
Yeah.
people to say like, if you want to make sure we have all 5 of the elements in the master plan, I mean, some of them are caring community is obviously harder to, but if there's something specific under connectivity and access or, the sustainability or fiscal.
I think
Just-
I think
I thought this
all
was,
of these people are great. The only thing for priority, I would just put Ryan's first. And then it would just flow right down through the rest of them.
Carlisle's.
Ryan likes that.
For Carlisle,
Yeah,
not for Ryan.
right. But anything that Travis or Kate, you
Well,
don't
I
see
mean,
missing
I'm
here
just
that
looking,
like to
you know,
have?
in April of 22, I already asked him about the pending legislation for the tax deferral. So I don't, you know, he already knows that I think we're interested in that. So that, but
And that's been, that's covered under what Joan.
yeah,
wrote
and I
about.
think, and I still think it's important that, you know, he just know that we're interested in
Right.
him not losing sight of that.
Right,
But the other thing, and I've talked about about this to him in the past as well, is the idea of regionalization and the state facilitating regionalization. So for instance, when they do this stupid, you know, 3A, where that it's not one size fits all, and that a couple of towns could get together and say, okay, look, you know,
right,
we need to have so many acres of open space and we need to have so many units. You've got the units, we got the space, let's get together and, you know, we're done, right? Or that sort of thing. So, but I don't know how you do that exactly, you know, but again, if we had more legislators that were interested in that concept to keep their eye open and to and a lot of this is due again to the, also to the unfunded mandate.
Right.
And to, you know, so as I said, I've already had a number of
Yeah, I
lengthy
agree with both of
conversations.
those. The
with them.
Regionalization from two ends, right? One is the one we've been talking about, which is the, you know, maybe there's collaboration or there's merging of some functions
Yeah.
or help with that. But the other one, which you alluded to, which is really important when you talk about 40B and possibly, in my pet peeve,
Sustainability.
which is this whole school, what's the thing, the one we have with Boston,
Metco.
Metco. Like, why is it so limited? Why can't we be looking at Lowell? Why can't we be doing things right in our neighborhood? And there's no machine, there's no mechanism, and that would be a huge
Yeah.
benefit to rich towns like us in close proximity to needy, underserved towns. That's a partnership that I could really see helping and a social.
And well, and the other thing is that a lot of the mandates are mutually exclusive. So the housing, for instance, we'd have to cut a lot of trees, which is then not sustainable
Right.
and not, and, you know, so it's like, but you're making us do both, you know?
Right.
So like choose one or the other, or let us choose one or the other, or, you know, just kind of, I don't know.
I agree.
yeah, okay. I've added that to the list. I'm sure Aubrey has too. And we'll figure out how to put this together and recognizing that we may not get through everything, and we'll just make sure we have
Yeah.
another time to.
And well,
But we
actually,
have to give him a, I mean, we should give him the bullet point list
Right.
by the end of the week.
and the
Right.
police chief Fong did he answer and give anything? Because and my email also was a little concerned about this the post, the new officer, police officer,
Yeah.
blah, 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 blah.
What does that acronym stand for?
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and again, it's another one of those possibly unfunded mandates.
Right.
And it's, you know, being done by civilians and there's no police representation in that committee and.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've got a lot to ask him to send to him, and we'll try to organize it before we send it out, and then we'll have a conversation with him next time, and we can plan for the, you know, continuing conversations beyond that.
Is he coming in person? Or
Yeah.
Okay, you know, he had just had a little baby, so we should all
I
mask up for him.
know.
That's why I put him first.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the town administrator's report.
Okay, I will be as
Mr. McLean.
succinct as possible for the board. So I found out about this Trekker Award. Just wanted to recognize Saul and Lee, recent completers of the Trekker Award, which is 55 miles of Carlisle trails. I put some links to this, I think, unique initiative here, highlighting the beautiful space in Carlisle. So wanted to call that out. And the board has me long enough. Maybe I'll try it. Maybe I'll try and get all 55. That would be fun. The Clark room install in this room. This is the IT our friend in the back will be very appreciative of this, but we're looking to get that the first week in February. That'll include some of the screens, and then we'll put the decorations back up so this room looks befitting of the way it once did.
Are we gonna get a couple more microphones, just out of curiosity, so that I don't have to keep on hopping up and learning people mind?
Yes.
That would
But
be
an
great.
extra for when
For the,
somebody's
for the
coming up to
guests,
speak.
yeah, that would be great,
That'd be great.
yeah.
The equipment will be housed here, so one of the problems, just briefly, is they have to bring it here, set it up, so count it and all that, and they don't necessarily know who's going to be here. So
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it's all just
I
housed here,
got
it'll
it.
work. Some of the technological improvements at Town Hall, I know IT is a focus of this board. We are evaluating some potential telephone solutions, went to the FinCom with that, and also working with the school committee. Working on upgrading some of our internal security measures to include multi-factor authentication and other protections for our IT infrastructure. Aubrey's working on SharePoint sites for all of our internal teams. We should be ready to have a select board solution as well, which would solve some of these document and versioning problems. And then Jen's working through our basic licensing and email assignments to remove old accounts and make sure we have a current inventory. Once that's done, we should inventory the hardware and then have all of that for the board to understand, and then implement accountability procedures for signing it out, having it, and making sure we know where everything is.
Quick question, the evaluating potential telephone solutions, is this being done just for Town Hall, or is this going to be include what the school is looking at as well? Are we doing this in a coordinated way?
So we, Scott at the schools, the IT director at the schools, found a cloud-based solution I think works well for non-public safety entities. So this would be library, town hall, and the schools would all be connected.
Great.
Which is good. And it's with some small investments in phones, which is small dollars compared to other infrastructure. It is actually a cost reduction for town hall and a little bit of a cost increase for the school. So it's a pretty good solution. I'm not ready to really roll it out, but I
Yeah,
will
okay.
make sure the board is on board before
Great.
we.
Ryan, one question on the inventory IT equipment accountability. Do we have a policy, like a use policy for using, company town assets like computers?
Not one that I'd be proud of. So we need to build one.
something.
Records. This is a continuing issue, not only for compliance, but also space. Just want to quickly shout out Peggy's work here. So everybody manages their own current records pretty well. That's not a problem. It's old records and what I would call orphan records, or those that aren't maintained by staff. Peggy's been doing that work and deserves credit for continuing to beat the drum. I've joined with her and we are an unstoppable team. Working with each department to understand how we can store these documents, organize them, and reduce the file load, eliminate some of the cabinets, organize and archive boxes, and eventually have our active files organized as well. So what this would do is complete that first stage of the records project and then set us up for digitizing when we have the staff and the will to do that. So this would get us to more than halfway, create some space in town hall, and then allow us to do a reorganization of personnel in a way that makes sense. Jen's taking a lead on this project, working on moving IT and other things that go into this various reorganization. Some of the HR updates the board is tracking, collecting resumes for the assessing assistant, the foreman, and the police chief. All of those are coming to a head. Police chief in March. We have the chair here if you want any additional information. The foreman position is internal until the end of this week, and then we are going to start sending recommendations to the Board of Assessors for the assessing assistant. They voted today to have us provide them with recommendations to speed up that process. Given some of the issues you heard tonight, we need staff in that department terribly. Some HR platforms we're looking at would help us streamline accruals, get more information for the board in terms of your HR questions and some of the budget questions. So we'll have a recommendation for that soon. And then Aubrey attached a military leave policy. I should mention that this is Aubrey's part of the report. Updated a military leave policy that she would like to have the board consider, and she included in this packet for you to review. The new newsletter will come out this week, I believe tomorrow. And then Tara Bicknell, our talented assistant treasurer collector, received an excellent opportunity in Andover. Her last day will be February 3rd. So we've already advertised this position and am working with Kim to cover the office while we hire someone for Tara's position. So thank you,
Mm.
Tara, for her service. We will make sure that she understands how much we recognize her work as she moves on in her career.
Just one quick thing. I do not think the
It- no, it-
revised
It didn't make it
military
into the
pay
packet.
policy got into the packet.
Then you will have
Yeah.
it tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll just have to, yeah. Great.
Yeah, I just scrolled through it, so.
So we met with, well, I was there while the finance committee met with departments last week. We had the two marathon sessions. Those were great. Departments and committees and boards came in and presented their budgets. And the finance committee asked great questions, and you could tell this is a well-run process. I provided a link to the most current budget updates, and the finance committee has scheduled 2 meetings to go over the deliberation part of what they heard and what they want to prioritize. As we did talk about in executive session today, one thing they are looking for is a recommendation on the wage and class plan. Kelly and I finished our analysis and provided that to you for your consideration. I am asking, so our community choice aggregation CCA contract expires soon. We need to begin negotiating. This is Bob Zog, who is keeping us compliant and up to date on this as part of our ESC. Sue Thomas has also been helping me understand what needs to be completed here. So what I'm asking for from the board is the ability to create a working group to address and provide recommendations to this body on that contract. So that working group would include Bob, Sue, myself, and then anyone else we need as a technical expert. So this would be to provide you a recommendation. It does not need a new committee if you're okay with that structure.
Is this the colonial?
Yes.
Okay, so are you looking for a new aggregator or are you just negotiating, finding out from, I'm just wondering what the committee is going to be doing.
Probably understanding both.
So,
So
do we,
is it worth it to switch, or
Got
is
it.
there a
Okay.
current
All right.
recommendation?
shall we do a quick, do you feel like we need a motion to, I mean, I think it's your purview to
No,
set up
it's
a
his
working
no,
group, so
it's his
I think
working group.
informing us is fine.
I think we just need to direct them to do it.
Yeah, we don't need a vote.
Yeah, I think
Right,
you
so
should
that's
create a
great.
Group to work
Yeah.
on it.
Right.
Yeah,
Then we will provide you with a recommendation. I look forward to
Excellent.
the work. The Carlisle Garden Club requests use of the town common. These are action items for your consideration for their garden tour on Friday, June 9th, 2023, and Saturday, June 10th. They received approval from the FRS, and I provided a link to their very nice website.
so we need a motion. I don't see one in the packet, so we need a motion to,
I move that we
Yeah.
approve the use of town common. The Carlisle Garden Club's use of the town common for their garden tour on Friday, June 9th, 2023. And on Saturday, June 10th, 2023.
may I have a
Second,
second.
I second
Yeah,
it.
second, Kate seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's approved.
And then I'm sure the board is familiar with this, the Carlisle Old Home Day Committee, which we
Mhm.
plan on going to this year, recommends June 24th and 25th as the dates for this year's event. This was originated in 1912, and according to Ruth Wilkin Hollis's record, it was a beautiful summer day with the town flag flying on the common and the soldiers' monument in the square decorated with flags and flowers. I hope it's the same. The permissions request, including the use of town center, Spalding Field, portions of the schools and grounds, the fire station, town hall, and the roads and byways necessary to complete the annual foot races.
May I have a motion?
I move that we approve June 24th and 25th as Carlisle's Old Home Day.
I'm sorry, maybe it's a little.
I'm sorry. I move that we designate June 24th and 25th as of 2023 as for Carlisle's Old Home Day. And that the Old Home Day Committee has the use of the town center, Spalding Field, and portion of the school and grounds with the school's permission, the fire station, town hall, and the roads and byways necessary to complete the annual foot races.
Second.
Any discussion?
Do we need this to be contingent on the police, for the byways and the annual foot?
If provided they work with the police and
Yeah.
fire on any necessary safety concerns.
Can we add a stipulation that the town administrator has to do his time in the dunk tank?
Jim O'Shea already informed me of that.
All right, may I have a second?
I did second.
Oh, sorry, that's right. All righty, let's do this by voice vote, please. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. Hooray, here goes, Old Home Day is now in the calendar.
I'll go in the dunk tank.
All right.
I'm not afraid of it. Just quick staff recognition. So Kelly, our talented town accountant, has been doing multiple projects trying to ready analysis for the budget, for wages, for all of the initiatives that Aubrey's working on with HR. This is above and beyond what's required. She would say that it's part of her job, but she's been working overtime. And her ability to organize data and help us try and clean things up is going to pay dividends for years to come. So she is worthy of recognition and praise. And then James Hall stepped into our DPW foreman role with almost no notice during the busiest time of the year, which is the winter months during Gary's absence from the superintendent role. He has provided a pretty seamless transition, continuing DPW services, and has definitely connected with town hall staff to make sure that we're not missing anything while we try to fill Gary's very, very large shoes. So he communicates well with public safety and us, and he helps with additional projects when we ask him. So definitely worthy of recognition. Just a quick note from me. Normally a guardsman goes for 2 to 3 weeks to training every year. I'm transitioning to a new role at state headquarters, which provides for year-round annual training. So I'll be taking days here and there rather than that chunk, which I think does help the town. But it does mean that I'll occasionally be out for military service to meet that requirement. One anomaly is this month I'll be missing the next 3 Fridays, 1 for professional development and 2 for this military training. Just want to make sure the board's aware of that schedule and knows it ahead of time. So it's a good thing, but it does come with those extra days that needs to be known. And I attached some dates to include some of those military trainings and other professional developments in their calendar section. And then I will call it up on the screen, but the next item is your draft agenda, Madam Chair.
Before you get to that, can I ask about the dates? And the February 13th in particular, why can we not meet on the Tuesday? Is there some reason?
Valentine's Day.
Well, it's not like it's Martin Luther King Day. We don't
Valentine's Day.
This is why, really?
Remember, we.
I wanna
talked
stay
this
married.
earlier, yeah, that we would try to go with either the Monday or the Wednesday.
What?
You don't remember us talking about?
I
this?
remember us talking about either Monday or Wednesday, but not why. I thought there
Oh.
was some
No. It was just
reason
to avoid
why we would
Valentine's Day.
depart from our. Okay.
Some
Whatever.
spouses complain of being select board widows. I won't say who, but I've heard that term.
And just on that, but let's clarify, we are going with the Monday, the 13th, correct? This says or hold it on the 15th. Can everybody here make the meeting on the 13th?
Well, and that's a joint meeting with the FinCom, and that's the regular night, which is another
It's a
reason.
much better reason to put it
Okay,
on the.
so-
16th.
Yes. Said.
Yeah. But anyway, it is already posted, and I think Lynn has agreed that works for her.
Yeah, she has.
Okay, so
But that-
February
that
13th,
works okay for the board members here?
As
yes.
far as I know, I have a work commitment coming up and but we'll just deal with it as. it comes.
Okay. Nathan,
Yeah,
as far as you
February
know,
28th doesn't work for me, but the 13th does.
okay.
Okay.
The Tuesday of the 28th doesn't work for you. Okay,
We don't have to move it on my account. I just.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a,
And on the 6th, do we know what time the FinCom is meeting? Is that at 7?
7:30.
Okay, it wasn't a special meeting or anything.
No, it's the regular meeting.
The
so we
regular
should-
meeting,
it's probably
okay.
posted, but
All right.
Yeah, it's the
Oh,
next
um,
3.
what time?
before we
7.
do do you want to save the designer selection policy till after we review the agenda for the next meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we've got the draft agenda for the 31st, and we know already we need to add hopefully the approval of the order.
Yep.
The dog, the amendment. And so if you want to just quickly take a look here, so are we still on track then to have the proposal, Ryan, from Jack Trost and yourself about the master plan.
So-
And then,
Interestingly, the feedback that we've gotten about the master plan. So we sent it to each committee with recommendations from us as to who should champion each issue. The feedback that came back is worth looking at. So Julie and I were talking about this today, and we'll loop Jack into this as well, that we may need to consider having a discussion about the feedback that came back to inform what would be next, and invite the
Okay.
master steering plan committee and Julie to kind of go over it. But it's more than just, I want this or I want that. There's some substantive
Okay.
notes that the board should consider before you head into this implementation phase.
So
so
is,
maybe we should just still have this on the agenda, but change what the discussion will be,
Yes,
right? Okay,
and then a subsequent meeting would get to implementation.
I believe so.
yeah,
But the discussion will help us understand the timeline too.
all right. And then the CPC is prepared to come in for, similar to the way the COAHS did it tonight. Theirs will be more limited, obviously, because what they really, they can look at their charge and then the master plan piece and how we can help them. But specifically, they'll be talking with us about the 3 proposals they've received for CPA funding too, for this town meeting. And then we have the follow-up meeting with the Environmental Sustainability Committee, which we're talking about as a joint meeting as well. And I'm trying to remember
Yeah.
specifically what that.
Well,
was.
we'd asked for prioritization.
I think that's going to be a very important meeting. I was also at the FinCom hearings, and they did come and ask for a budget. And I think actually more properly, they should have come to us to ask for a budget first, because they're our committee or
Well,
we
they
should have
did
talked
though.
about.
They did in the context of 40
Remember when
line
they
items.
presented their whole work plan to us?
Okay, well, I don't remember us.
No,
totally-
we didn't
Just-
sign off. one
We
way or
didn't
the
sign
other.
off on it.
Or
So,
didn't
and then
support
suddenly
it,
they're
right.
appearing in front of the FinCom with a budget.
Well, yeah, that may have,
Should say, yeah, it makes sense to go to them, but not approach
we
it.
did, well,
Right, but, it's
but
always
Kate,
that same problem.
Kate's right. I mean, we, at least I speak for myself, it didn't think through that piece about the budget. We said, there's a lot of stuff here, come back with your priorities. And because of scheduling, because originally they were gonna come, I think in
Earlier.
November or something. It's gotten pushed
Yep.
and we didn't, okay, that on
Yeah,
us, we
okay.
didn't stop this other thing that's on autopilot that
Yeah.
got them in front of that.
But in
gate.
that same context, I think there's a lot of committees that need a budget or support. There's some committees that we probably should, eliminate. And I think it would be nice to do this as a whole, again, a piece to see, what is our budget for committee support and how do we allocate that to our committees or,
Mhm.
As I said, at one point when I discovered that historic commission had
An admin.
and there was a bunch of other committees that had zippity doodah who are spending a lot of money, like for instance, MFC. It's like, well, how did that ever happen? So that we can just kind of get it all in one.
I think
place.
it's good, lesson learned or, process improvement for the next cycle that we be more cognizant of the budget timeline when we make these committee. I mean, we've tried this year, we did introduce forward planning on all our agendas, right? So we do a lot, we spend a lot of time, the 3 of us and Aubrey spent a lot of time on what agenda's coming when, but I haven't really mirrored this FinCom hearing schedule with those kind of things. So that should be part of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, anyway, so throwing that out there.
Okay. And then, so those are the key things that are on here.
Other business.
Yeah. I know it's getting late, but I want to just throw out one broad comment here, which is I'd really like to see us as a board schedule time relatively soon to do some of the bigger picture stuff.
Yeah, maybe
like
even
you
if it's
just
a special
mentioned about the
meeting.
committees and, right, that's the kind of stuff that I think it's hard to do in this kind of meeting. So maybe something where that, and also looking at the sort of the relationship between town staff and boards, now that we're moving into, having some more town resources. some of that long-term, budget planning. So anyway, I'm happy to, maybe Ryan and David and I can talk about what might make sense and then check in with the board about when we could do that.
March and April
Yeah.
at the moment are thinner in terms of things we have to do, because
Yeah,
the warrant, the town meeting driven items start to kind of get baked in. So
But,
that's,
yeah,
we need to.
But
do
I
that.
think our goal setting, we do a big goal setting in the beginning. I think we need to do it quarterly. And we might even need to have a whole meeting just for that, no other business, and we just, so that we can talk about those bigger picture things and get into them where we need to discuss, where are we on our current goals? What kept us from achieving them? Which ones can we check off? What support do we need? Which one should we, gee, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but let's get rid of it, that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. Good. Okay, so the designer selection policy. Mr. McLean.
Excellent. So this came about because we are attempting to select a designer for the MFC. So this would be what the state calls a house doctor, a designer or a group of designers that could meet the needs of the Municipal Facilities Committee in terms of getting ahead of projects. So what this might look like is they could empower the designer or whatever designer is selected, negotiate, and then start on the design of, or the whatever is needed to get the town hall roof done while they're working on the library project. So this would be a dedicated engineering resource. So in preparing this RFP, council advised us that our 2008 designer selection policy needs to be updated and recommended that we do this first before we do that RFP. We've seen this a couple of times and we sent it to you for comments. And we've incorporated those comments in this draft. Essentially, the main change here is that the select board is empowering me to do the procurement, to create a designer selection committee. That could be person or persons that help us make that decision. So if you think small items, we don't need a large group, but big design items like the town hall, we would want more input. Anything that's brand new, like a public safety facility, would be outside of this. This would still apply, but you would create full committees for that. So it's a little bit different. And then 95% of this is driven by the state statute and what is required. So town council has reviewed this and you've reviewed it, and I'm looking for your support.
I move that we approve the designer selection policy as presented tonight.
Second.
Any discussion?
I sent you one minor typo late today, Ryan. It's not substantive, it's just the reference.
And including Dave Modell's minor typo adjustment that he sent in today.
Dave and I will get it done.
Okay, any other comments?
I think
Yes,
it's,
Travis.
I think it's great because it takes a lot of the pressure off of these boards,
Oh,
especially the
absolutely.
MFC to, start
Why
to
didn't we think of
do
this
this.
years ago?
Is there any kind of threshold though for like having other input other than your procurement skills?
Yeah, I mean, if I do it wrong, you fire me. That's number one, but really you're driving this. It's just authorizing me to do it. So the
Right.
MFC would say, go procure this for us or negotiate it.
Right.
And then like anything else, anyone in my position who's any good would then bring you, so this is what I'm thinking, do you
Yeah.
approve it?
Right.
Nobody that's any good is gonna just go do it.
Right.
Right, so this is just kind of directing that.
I'm comfortable with it.
Okay, then let's vote on this, please. Voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously. Great, we have really
Couple of
just
others.
The other ones?
which, oh, gosh, yeah, there's another one, isn't
No,
there?
so this
Just
is,
for our information.
this is getting ahead of a potential policy discussion that you might have at this workshop. So
Yeah.
these are policies that are being discussed by the finance team, and then they'll go to the finance committee and then you. So I'm just giving them to you ahead of time.
Oh, so,
Oh,
okay.
that's
All
good.
right,
I
I
was
read that.
worried.
All right.
Take it.
Financial reserves and overlay. Okay, riveting.
And you highlighted key things.
Yes. And there'll be
Okay.
more recommendations, but this is the first look for you.
First
good.
iteration. Okay, great. We did the deed transfer and
It's just
Unless-
liaison reports.
the liaison reports, right? So does anybody have a report something they want to provide to us tonight? All right. And unless there are any questions about the warrants, I think we.
So am I the only one going to MMA on Friday? Well, I know you're going to be there. Actually, did everybody know that Ryan's on one of the panels for
No,
about
what are you presenting?
regionalization?
Regional.
Shared services, yes.
Well, there you go. Look at, we're already implementing the housing.
That's
program.
right.
Okay. Good.
Just a little
Uh,
recognition.
And is anyone beside, I think, David, are you going to the chairs meeting in Concord tomorrow morning? Right, 8 AM, so am I.
Right now.
This is
do that.
Concord, issued an invitation to any of us that want to join their chairs meetings in, this is a first invitation to us. And we can see, we'll report back what we think is what's valuable. Okay, then unless, yeah, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all right, excellent. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.